Hi, I'm glad you're here. Before we begin, dim the lights, get comfortable, and put on your headphones. Leave the outside world behind for a while. Ahead lies a quiet journey inward, to where the noise fades and something real begins. If you enjoy this kind of content, leave a like and let me know in the comments what time you're watching this. It means a lot to feel your presence. So let's begin. You are entering a space where silence speaks, and darkness is not a threat, but a language. Let yourself drift now, not just into sleep, but into a deeper awareness, a place where your mind loosens its grip and the unconscious begins to rise. There is no need to force anything. Just listen. Let the voice wrap around you like a tide. Let pull you inward, slowly, gently. You are not alone. You never were. Beneath every conscious thought, there is something older watching, waiting, whispering. Carl Jung did not see darkness as something to flee from. He saw it as a mirror most people spend their lives avoiding, not because it lies, but because it reveals what hides in you when no one is looking. What parts of yourself have you denied so completely they only return in dreams and symptoms? The shadow is not a monster under the bed. It is the version of you that you disowned so you could survive. The you that was too angry, too proud, too sexual, too bold, too curious, too wild. It waits. It watches. And sometimes when you're exhausted, when your defenses falter, it emerges. Not to destroy, but to remind. You have buried things in yourself that were once alive. You silenced voices that once roared with life. Not because you were wrong, but because the world wasn't ready for all of you. So you became smaller, tamer, more acceptable. But deep down, the exiled parts never died. They just retreated. And the further you push them down, the more they distort. That's why the shadow becomes terrifying. Not because it is evil, but because it is unloved. Tonight, as you drift into the quiet, imagine this. What if every discomfort you feel, every restless impulse, every self-sabotage was a signal from the part of you that's still waiting to be seen? What if insomnia is not the absence of sleep, but the presence of something within that refuses to stay unconscious? Jung believed that dreams are the royal road to the unconscious. They are not random. They are not noise. They are coded messages sent by the parts of your soul you've forgotten. When you dream of falling, of being chased, of losing your voice, something is speaking. Something is begging to be heard. But we live in a world that drowns out the voice of the inner world with constant distraction. We've become afraid of silence, because silence makes the unconscious louder. So tonight, let this silence speak. Let the voice inside you come forth, not to shame you, but to guide you. Jung taught that integration is the goal, not perfection. You are not here to become flawless. You are here to become whole. And wholeness requires facing the broken, loving the unwanted, reclaiming the forgotten. The shadow is not your enemy. It is your buried self, longing to return home. When you feel triggered, when someone's words light a fire in you, that is not weakness. That is revelation. You're not reacting to them. You are reacting to what they represent inside you. Your rage is not random. Your sadness is not weakness. Your numbness is not failure. All of these are signals. They're the language of the psyche. Learn to listen, and they will guide you. There's a place inside you where no lie can live. A place too deep for shame, too ancient for fear. It does not care about social roles, or what others think, or what you were told to be. It is pure, unedited. That place is what Jung called the self, the totality of who you are, conscious and unconscious. And you're not separate from it. You are it, but you have forgotten. You have wandered so far into the mask of personality that you mistake the role for the soul. As you fall asleep, feel the heaviness in your body. That weight is not fatigue. It is gravity pulling you inward. Not downward, but inward. Into your own depths. Into your own knowing. Into the parts of you that have been silenced by noise. The world has trained you to live externally, to focus on performance, appearance, results. But your soul has no interest in performance. It wants truth, stillness, surrender. You may not remember your dreams tonight. That's okay. They will still do their work. Not all messages come in words. Some come in symbols, in feelings, in quiet recognitions that echo for days. A dream can change you even when you forget it, because your subconscious does not need memory. It only needs space. Jung once said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life and you will call it fate. How much of your life has been lived on autopilot? How many patterns do you repeat? Not because you choose them, but because they were etched into you long ago. You are not weak for repeating them. You are human. You were shaped before you had the power to choose. But now you're listening. Now you are remembering. And with awareness, choice returns. So rest now. Drift, not into forgetting, but into remembering. Let this voice be the bridge between your surface and your center. Let the darkness be safe tonight. Let it be soft. Let it be yours. You're not broken. You're not lost. You are unfolding. Quietly, patiently, deeply. There are layers within you that have never seen the light. They do not speak in language. They do not answer to logic. They wait beneath the surface like roots, invisible but alive. These roots remember what your mind forgets. They remember every silence you endured, every time you wanted to speak and didn't, every moment your truth was swallowed for the sake of peace. But truth never dies. It waits, and when it is denied too long, it turns into symptoms. The mind distracts, the soul persists, and eventually the body begins to carry what the psyche cannot. Fatigue, tension, restlessness, vague sadness with no name. These are not weaknesses. These are messages. You are not malfunctioning. You are full. Full of unsaid things, unfelt griefs, unmet needs. The world does not teach you to process. It teaches you to perform. And so, you learn to smile while drowning, to keep moving while fragmenting. You are praised for being strong when all you've done is survive the silence. Carl Jung believed that neurosis is the suffering of a soul that has not found its meaning. Meaning is not a concept. It is not something to be invented. It is discovered, unearthed, like something ancient buried under layers of noise. You were not born with confusion. You were born with knowing. And then the world taught you to doubt, to forget, to trade inner clarity for outer approval. That was the first fracture. And so, in the quiet of night, the questions return. Not the loud ones, not the dramatic ones, the quiet ones, the ones that show up just before sleep, the ones that whisper through your breath. What am I really doing? Why does this feel empty? Whose life is this? These are not signs of depression. They are signs of awakening. You were told to succeed, to achieve, to move forward, but never to turn inward. Never to ask if the path you're on was chosen by your soul or inherited from someone else's fear. Jung taught that the greatest tragedy is the unlived life. The life you were meant to live, but abandoned out of fear, guilt, or obedience. But there is no expiration date on truth. The call does not fade. It only waits. Every person you meet carries a mirror. Some reflect your wounds. Some reflect your longings. Some reflect the parts of you you've disowned. When you feel drawn to someone or repelled, that is information. Attraction is not always desire. It can be recognition. Repulsion is not always hatred. It can be projection. The people who trigger you the most are often the ones who hold keys to your shadow. You cannot heal by avoiding discomfort. You cannot evolve by numbing the signal. Healing is not a spa, it is a fire. And within that fire is the melting of identity, the shattering of illusion, the burning away of the false self. Not because the false self is bad, but because it is too small. It cannot contain the truth of who you are becoming. At night, the false self weakens. Your defenses tire. Your masks begin to slip. That's why you feel more open, more raw, more sensitive. Do not resist it. Do not run. This is the doorway, the place between what was and what could be. If you want to meet your real self, you must first sit in the space where nothing is certain, where everything feels blurry, where identity unravels and silence becomes the only honest thing left. Jung believed that individuation, the process of becoming whole, begins when we no longer chase ideals, but begin to integrate opposites. Light and shadow, strength and softness, logic and mystery. You are not here to become one half of yourself. You are here to hold the whole, to be both fire and stillness, vision and uncertainty, faith and fear. That is not confusion. That is complexity. That is being human. Let yourself drift into that complexity now. Let your mind soften. Let your breath slow. There is nothing to solve, no test to pass, no performance to perfect. You're not here to impress. You're here to feel. Beneath every guarded thought is an unloved truth. Beneath every sharp reaction is a soft wound. Beneath every anxious breath is a forgotten part of you asking to be remembered. You were not born to be a mask. You were born to be a bridge between what the world sees and what you truly are. The shadow is not in the way. It is the way. Through it, you will find your power. Through it, you will reclaim your voice. Through it, you will come home. There is a stillness beneath all noise. A place where time has no meaning, where identity dissolves, where you remember without memory. You touch it when you're half asleep, when the world fades, when only the inner remains. Let yourself sink into that place now. Let it take you. You do not have to understand. You do not have to try. The soul moves when the mind lets go. You have been taught to resist surrender, to fear stillness. But surrender is not defeat. It is alignment. And stillness is not absence. It is presence without striving. Jung did not ask people to be better. He asked them to be whole. And wholeness begins in the dark, in the silence, in the gentle falling away of who you thought you had to be. Close your eyes, or if they're already closed, close your thoughts. Even for a moment, let the breath breathe itself. Let the body rest into gravity. You are not falling apart. You are falling inward. There's a kind of truth that does not speak in words. It does not argue or explain or persuade. It simply is. You feel it in the pauses between thoughts, in the quiet discomfort of stillness, in the sense that something is missing even when everything seems fine. That kind of truth doesn't live in the mind. It lives in the body, in the gut, in the breath. It is the hum beneath the noise, the vibration behind the voice. And when you stop resisting it, it starts to rise. You are taught to value certainty. But certainty is often just fear disguised as clarity. What if you allowed yourself to not know? To not be sure? What if not knowing is not a weakness, but a doorway? Carl Jung believed that the unconscious is not a void. It is a living system, alive with symbols, patterns, instincts, memory. Not memory of facts, but memory of essence, of soul, of experience that belongs to you, but comes from something older than you. You carry within you the echoes of those who came before. Their stories live in your blood. Their fears hide in your habits. Their longings whisper through your instincts. You are not separate from the human story. You are a continuation. And the more you try to escape your past, the more you are bound by it. But if you turn toward it gently, honestly, you begin to dissolve the spell. You stop running. You begin to remember. You don't have to consciously know what you're healing. You don't have to name every wound. The psyche knows its own path. All it needs is space, a pause in the performance, a breath without resistance. That's what sleep is. It is the return to the original rhythm, the falling away of illusion, the slipping back into the primal truth of being. The conscious mind fears surrender. It clings. It explains. It resists. But the unconscious does not work through force. It works through symbols, through images, through dreams. That's why transformation never begins with a decision. It begins with a shift in perception. A moment when the old story no longer makes sense. A dream that lingers. A phrase that won't leave your mind. These are not accidents. They are messages, not from above, but from within. Every symbol is a bridge between the seen and the unseen, between the outer world and the inner landscape. When you ignore symbols, they turn into symptoms. When you ignore emotions, they become patterns. When you ignore your needs, they become projections. The unconscious does not disappear. It finds another way to speak. Jung warned against spiritual bypass, the temptation to escape pain through illusion. But true growth is not about rising above. It is about going through the grief, through the fear, through the confusion. You do not transcend a shadow. You integrate it. You give it a name, a face, a voice. You sit with it, not as an enemy, but as an orphaned part of you. And slowly it begins to soften. Do not rush this process. The soul does not follow the clock. It unfolds like a tide, forward and back, forward and back. Progress is not linear. Healing is not a checklist. You will forget what you've learned. You will fall back into old patterns. That's okay. That's how it works. The point is not to be perfect. The point is to return. Return to your center. Return to your breath. Return to the stillness beneath the noise. You don't need to try so hard. You don't need to fight yourself. There is nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. You're in process. You're in movement. You are changing in ways you cannot yet see. Jung said that dreams don't tell us what we want to hear. They show us what we need to see. Even the nightmares, especially the nightmares. They are not punishments. They are messages, cries from the parts of you that were never allowed to speak in daylight. If you run from them, they chase you. If you turn to face them, they become guides. There is wisdom in discomfort. There is guidance in confusion. There is a lesson in every trigger. The world around you is not random. It is symbolic. Every encounter, every conflict, every attraction is an invitation to look inward. What am I seeing in them that I'm not seeing in me? What am I resisting? What am I longing for? These questions are not meant to be answered with the mind. They're meant to be carried, lived, felt. Let them unfold in you like a seed breaking open. You do not need to rush toward insight. You're not behind. You are exactly where you need to be, in the dark, listening, feeling, remembering. There is no light without darkness, no self without shadow, no healing without truth. And truth does not always feel good. Sometimes it burns, sometimes it breaks, but only what is false will fall away. What is real will remain, stronger, clearer, deeper. Breathe into that truth. Let it take root. Let it settle into your bones. You don't have to fix yourself. You only have to let go of who you are not. Underneath all the layers is a silence that sings, a stillness that speaks, a knowing that needs no proof. Rest in that knowing now. Let it surround you like nightfall, soft, infinite, unafraid. There is a silence inside you that cannot be touched by the world. It waits beneath the noise, beneath the roles you play, beneath the voices you echo. That silence is not emptiness. It is origin. It is the place you came from and the place to which you return when everything else falls away. In the quiet of night, that silence grows louder. Not as sound, but as presence, as knowing, as memory that was never verbal, but always real. You have spent years learning how to be someone, how to please, how to perform, how to earn love by shrinking. But now, in this stillness, there is space for something older to rise. Something unedited, something raw. Not the self you built, but the self you buried. That self is not polished. It does not follow rules. It does not fit into roles. But it is real, and it is waiting. Carl Jung spoke of the tension between opposites, between the persona, the mask you wear, and the shadow, the self you hide. Healing is not the rejection of either. It is the integration, the union of what you show and what you suppress. You do not become whole by choosing light over darkness. You become whole by seeing that both are you. The parts that shine and the parts that ache. The parts that conform and the parts that rebel. None of them are wrong. They are fragments. And the work is to remember the whole. You may feel lost sometimes, disconnected, like your life is happening around you, not through you. That is not failure. That is the signal, the call back inward. You're not meant to stay in alignment with a life that no longer fits. The ache you feel is wisdom. It is the soul's resistance to stagnation. The path of growth is not clean. It is messy, non-linear, confusing, but it is alive. Let yourself feel what you've avoided. Grief that was never named, anger that was never allowed, fear that was never safe to speak. These are not weaknesses. They are doorways. Your shadow is built from every emotion you were not permitted to have, from every truth you were punished for expressing. And now, in the soft hours of night, when no one is watching, those truths return. You do not have to explain them. You do not have to justify them. You only have to listen, to be still enough to hear what has been silenced. That is the work, to hold space, to welcome the parts of you that have been unloved. Not to change them, but to let them breathe. Jung taught that symbols carry what cannot be said. That is why your dreams are strange, why your images don't always make sense. The unconscious does not use language. It uses metaphor. It speaks through animals, through places, through impossible scenes. A door that won't open, a storm that never ends, a voice without a face. These are not nonsense. They are translations. When you wake with a feeling that won't leave, that is the dream's residue. It is the unconscious trying to stay with you, even as the mind takes over. Do not rush to interpret. Do not force meaning. Let it linger. Let it unfold in its own time. Not everything sacred comes with clarity. Sometimes what you need is not an answer, but a presence. A sense that something inside you is holding you, even when the world does not. You do not need to be understood by others to be real. Your truth is not a debate. It is a frequency, and those who are tuned to it will hear you, even in your silence. You have survived moments that could have ended you, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually. You have endured fractures of the soul that left you questioning your worth. But you are still here, and that means something. Not just that you survived, but that something in you refused to disappear. That something is sacred. That something is you. As you lie here now, body softening, breath slowing, feel the ground beneath you. Feel the support that asks for nothing. It simply holds. That is how your deeper self works. It is not force. It is not demand. It holds, quietly, eternally, waiting for you to return. There is no need to rush, no race to win. The journey inward is timeless. And in this timelessness, you remember you are not a role. You are not a task. You are not a name or a title or an expectation. You are a field of awareness, vast and undefinable. You are not broken. You are becoming. And becoming is never a straight line. Breathe into that truth. Let it settle into your chest like warmth. Let it echo in your spine like stillness. Let it remind you that you're allowed to rest. You're allowed to feel. You're allowed to stop striving and simply be. Nothing is missing. Nothing is wrong. You are exactly where you need to be, here in the dark with yourself. You have learned to function in pieces, to give one part to the world and keep the rest hidden, to show what is safe and suppress what is real. But the soul does not forget itself. It sends reminders in strange ways, in discomfort, in dreams, in restlessness that cannot be named. You feel it when you're alone, when the world gets quiet enough for the whispers to rise. That's when the pieces begin to stir. Not to be loud, but to be heard. You don't need to fix yourself. You need to gather yourself. Wholeness is not perfection. It's inclusion. It's allowing the wild to sit beside the calm, the fear to sit beside the faith, the sorrow to rest beside the strength. Everything belongs. Everything you've tried to escape is part of the map back home. Carl Jung spoke of the inner child not as a metaphor, but as a reality, a living part of the psyche, suspended in time, waiting to be held. That child carries your first wounds. The first time you were told to hide your truth. The first time your emotions were too much. The first time you learned that love was conditional. And so you adapted. You split. You became what was needed. But the part that was silenced did not die. It waits. And now, in this space, you can feel it. Not in words, but in the ache behind your chest. In the sense that something soft and small still lives inside you, asking to be seen without judgment. Not to be healed, just to be loved. There is no timeline for this. No finish line. No correct sequence. Healing is circular. You revisit old places with new eyes. You see patterns you didn't see before. And slowly, you stop abandoning yourself. The mind asks, how long will it take? The soul replies, as long as it takes to feel safe. This is not about becoming someone else. This is about returning to the one you were before you learned to be afraid. Before you learned that authenticity was dangerous. Before you learned to trade your inner fire for external approval. The fire still burns. Even now, beneath the layers, beneath the fatigue, beneath the coping, that fire is your will to live, to remember, to return. In dreams, fire often appears as destruction, but it is also purification. The psyche knows what must burn, not to punish you, but to release you from the false, from the dead, from the weight that was never yours. Let the fire come. Let it take what no longer fits. Let it clear the space for something true to grow. You are not your survival patterns. You are the one who outgrew them. The one who woke up in the middle of the pattern and said, there must be more than this. That moment is sacred. That moment is a rebirth. Every time you choose truth over comfort, you break a generational chain. Every time you sit with your emotions instead of running from them, you reclaim a piece of yourself. Every time you allow yourself to be seen as you are, you rewrite the story. You may never be fully understood, but that is not the goal. Understanding is a gift, not a requirement. You are not here to fit. You are here to remember. And the remembering does not always come in light. Often, it comes in silence, in stillness, in the darkness before sleep, when all the masks begin to dissolve. In this space, your inner world stretches its limbs. The voices return. The images shift. You are no longer bound by logic or time. You are fluid, expansive, whole. Breathe here. Let this moment be enough. Let the need to figure it all out fall away. There is no answer tonight. Only presence. Only process. The unconscious does not operate on command. It reveals itself in trust, in surrender, in rhythm. And you are entering that rhythm now. With every breath, your edges soften. With every breath, the noise recedes. With every breath, the door opens. You do not need to be worthy to enter. You already are. You are born with value. Nothing you've done can erase it. No mistake can cancel it. No failure can stain it. Your worth is not a question. It is a fact. And so you rest. Not because everything is solved, but because rest itself is sacred. Because restoration is the soil where change grows. Let go now. Let the stories unravel. Let the defenses drop. Let the child inside you be held, not analyzed. Not fixed, just held. You don't need to become light. You are already light, hidden under layers of survival. Fall, float, be. You are not falling into nothing. You're falling into yourself. And there, you will be met. Always. There's a difference between sleeping and surrendering. Sleeping is biological. Surrendering is spiritual. You can lie still and never truly rest. You can sleep for hours and still wake up tired. But when you surrender, when you let go of the fight inside your mind, something shifts. You're not escaping. You are rejoining. The self that lives beneath your identity has no name. It does not worry about titles, plans, or expectations. It is the witness, the observer. It has watched you become many things. It has seen you succeed and seen you shatter. But it has never judged you. It simply waits for you to return. And in this moment, you are returning. Carl Jung taught that we are not born blank slates. We are born into a sea of archetypes, forces that shape our very way of being. Not just roles like mother or lover or warrior, but patterns of meaning, instincts of the soul. These patterns live in dreams, in myths, in symbols. They repeat because they are eternal, because they are true. You are not alone in your struggles. You are living something timeless. What you carry, millions before you have carried. And what you heal, you do not only heal for yourself. You heal for the story of humanity itself. This is the great work, the inner work, and it begins in the smallest moments. In breath, in presence, in stillness. Tonight, you are not trying to change. You're allowing what is to be, allowing what you feel to rise, allowing what you've hidden to show itself without fear. That is enough. That is powerful. Let the breath move on its own. Let the body sink deeper. Let the space between thoughts widen like sky. There is no pressure here, no judgment, only space, only the unfolding. You do not need to understand the unconscious to be guided by it. It is not a thing to be controlled. It is a current to be trusted, a rhythm that moves in its own mysterious ways. The more you chase answers, the more you disturb the surface. But if you sit still long enough, the deeper truths rise on their own. Your dreams are not trying to confuse you. They're trying to speak in the only language your soul remembers. The language of symbol, the language of feeling, the language of timelessness. You may not know what a dream means, but you always know how it feels. That feeling is the message. The shadow often appears in dreams not as a monster, but as the misunderstood, the stranger, the outcast, the figure you fear but can't look away from. That is not a villain. That is a fragment, a part of you that longs for reintegration. Do not turn away. Approach it gently. Ask what it wants. Listen. You may be surprised by the softness beneath its mask. This is the paradox. The more we avoid the shadow, the more power it gains. But when we face it, when we make room for it, its intensity softens. It does not want to rule you. It wants to be remembered. There's a kind of peace that comes not from fixing, but from seeing clearly, from sitting with all that you are, not to change it, to witness it. This kind of seeing is rare. It is healing. It is holy. Let that gaze turn inward now. Let your awareness rest behind your thoughts. Let it sink into your chest, your belly, your bones. You are not watching your life like a screen. You're feeling it from the inside out. You have spent so much energy trying to be good enough, trying to be strong, trying to hold it all together. But now is not the time for effort. Now is the time for release. Let fall. Let the armor melt. Let the breath carry away what no longer serves. Jung once wrote, "We meet ourselves time and again in 1,000 disguises on the path of life." What if the people you resist most are not enemies, but reflections? What if every encounter is a message from the unconscious, dressed in someone else's face? The psyche is clever. It hides in plain sight. Your reactions are not random. They are clues to your longing, to your wounds, to your wholeness. As you listen now, you are not becoming something new. You are removing the noise that kept you from what you've always been. The original you, the wild you, the untamed, unmasked presence that needs no name to exist. This self does not ask for permission. It does not shrink for others' comfort. It simply is, and the more you rest into it, the more alive you become. So fall backward into yourself. Not into thought, but into awareness. Not into planning, but into presence. Feel the gravity of your own being pulling you home. There is no effort here, no proving, no resistance, only truth, only return. You're already home. There are places in your soul that light has never reached. Not because they are evil, but because they were never welcomed. These are the places you learn to close, to lock away, to avoid. But healing does not mean forcing light where it does not belong. Healing means bringing presence, bringing warmth, bringing awareness. The light does not conquer the dark. It meets it. You were told to be strong, but strength, as defined by the world, often means suppression. You held in the tears. You silenced the shaking voice. You swallowed the truth. But your soul knows that true strength is softness. To cry is not to collapse. To tremble is not to fail. These are openings, doorways, invitations to be more than the image you've maintained. Carl Jung wrote that people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid confronting their soul. We distract, we numb, we overwork, we explain everything away. But when all the noise fades, when the day ends and the body softens into stillness, the soul speaks. Not with words, but with ache, with breath, with dreams that haunt, with feelings that don't fit. Tonight, there is no more escaping. Not because you are trapped, but because you are safe. Safe enough to feel. Safe enough to notice what you've been ignoring. There is no one to impress now. No role to play. Only truth unfolding into quiet. You are not here to be good. You are here to be whole. And wholeness includes the forgotten, the flawed, the fractured. You do not become real by ascending above your humanity. You become real by sinking into it. The unconscious does not care about appearances. It wants integration. It wants honesty. If you lie to yourself long enough, the unconscious will send signals in dreams, in patterns, in pain. Not as punishment, but as a call, a sacred disruption, a reminder that the life you perform is not the same as the life you long for. Were you afraid would happen if you stopped performing? If you told the truth, not just to others, but to yourself? That fear is the gate. Behind it is freedom. Behind it is breath. Behind it is the return of what is real. You don't need to tear down the old all at once. You only need to stop pretending it fits. That's the beginning. The crack in the illusion. The moment when the soul whispers, there's more. More to feel. More to remember. More to become. Let yourself breathe now. Not just as a physical act, but as a spiritual one. Let the breath move like water, dissolving the hardness, loosening the control. Let it make space for the hidden to rise. Jung knew that the unconscious was not chaos. It was intelligence, vast, symbolic, purposeful. It holds not only your forgotten pain, but your forgotten wisdom, your unlived potential, your dormant creativity. When you repress pain, you also repress possibility. To reclaim one is to reclaim the other. This is not about becoming fearless. This is about becoming honest. Honest with the fact that parts of you still tremble, still question, still ache. That is not weakness. That is aliveness. Let yourself be alive now, even in the stillness. Let your thoughts drift without chasing them. Let your emotions stir without naming them. Let it all be here, unfiltered, unmet, unforced. You're not broken. You are layered. You are vast. You are a landscape of memory and desire, fear and longing. There is no map for this, only presence. And presence means you don't have to rush past the ache. You can sit with it, listen, hold it without needing to change it. That is how it softens. That is how it transforms. The parts of you that sabotage are the parts that once protected. The voice that says, "You're not enough," is an echo of someone who made you feel that way first. These parts are not evil. They are outdated strategies, outgrown armor. You don't need to fight them. You need to thank them, and then release them. You are not at war with yourself. You are in reunion. The shadow is not your enemy. It is your exile, and exile longs for return. So let the return begin, in this quiet, in this moment, not through force, but through rest. Through surrender. The psyche is like a garden. You do not grow by pulling at the roots. You grow by making space, by giving light, by removing what chokes. Let this silence be your sunlight. Let this breath be your water. There is no one way to heal. There is only your way, and your way begins with this. Stop pretending you're not already enough. You were never meant to be perfect. You were meant to be whole, and wholeness is messy. It is sacred. It is yours. There is something within you that has never been touched by shame. A place so deep, so untouched by judgment or noise, that it simply exists, whole, unchanged, eternal. You may not feel it every day. The world has covered it with layers. Expectations, fears, beliefs that were never yours. But it's still there, beneath it all. Waiting. Carl Jung called it the self, not the ego, not the mask, but the essence. The one who watches, the one who remembers, the one who is not afraid. You do not need to become it. You already are it. The journey is not towards something new. It is back to what you were before the world told you what to be. You have worn many masks. You needed them. At times, they kept you safe. But safety is not the same as truth. Comfort is not the same as freedom. There comes a time when the mask begins to suffocate, when pretending costs more than revealing. And in that moment, something shifts, quietly, powerfully, irreversibly. That shift is happening now, not because you forced it, but because you're ready. Ready to see, ready to feel, ready to let go of what never truly fit. You don't have to do anything with that readiness. Just notice it. Let it sit in your chest like a warm weight. Let it move like a ripple through your breath. Change doesn't always roar. Sometimes it hums. You have tried to think your way through the pain, to explain it, to rationalize it. But the wound doesn't live in the mind. It lives in the body, in the breath, in the quiet reactions you don't notice. That's where healing begins, in sensation, not analysis. In presence, not performance. The unconscious remembers everything. Every time you said yes when you meant no. Every time you smiled through the ache. Every time you stayed silent when you wanted to scream. These moments are not gone. They live in your posture, your habits, your triggers. But they are not here to punish you. They are here to be felt, fully, finally. You don't need to relive everything to heal it. You just need to make space. The psyche knows what it's ready to reveal. The body knows what it's ready to release. Your only task is to listen, to stay, to breathe. You're not weak for being tired. You're not broken for feeling too much. You're not behind for needing rest. The soul has its own pace, and your timing is sacred. Let yourself be undone, not destroyed. Undone, unwoven, so that what's false can fall away and what's true can remain. This is not regression. It's return. Return to simplicity. Return to honesty. Return to the quiet power you had before you were told who you were supposed to be. Jung taught that individuation, the becoming of the self, is not about becoming better. It's about becoming real, dropping the performance, reclaiming the shadow, integrating the opposites. It is not glamorous. It is not easy, but it is true. And truth, even when quiet, has a gravity all its own. You can feel that gravity now, pulling you inward, slowing your breath, softening your thoughts. That's not sleep. That's soul. That's the unconscious beginning to open, to speak, to guide. Let it guide you, not with answers, but with presence. Not with certainty, but with symbols. This is not a puzzle to be solved. It's a mystery to be lived. The mind will try to categorize, to control, to know. That's its nature. But tonight, you can rest in the unknown. You can let go of the need to understand. You can float in the space where nothing is labeled and everything is alive. Dreams are not lies. They are mirrors, reflections of what is stirring below the surface. You don't have to decode them all. Just pay attention. Let them show you what you've overlooked. Let them remind you of what you once knew. Every image, every scene, every character in your dream is a part of you. The chaser, the lover, the stranger, the storm. They are not symbols of something external. They are expressions of your inner world. And when you watch them, you watch yourself. This is the gift of night, the return to wholeness, the soft unraveling of the ego, the melting of masks, the quiet homecoming. You don't need to force it. Just rest here. Breathe here. Trust that what needs to rise will rise. What needs to soften will soften. What needs to speak will find a voice. There is nothing to fix, nothing to prove. You are already inside the process. You're already held. Let your body go. Let your breath slow. Let yourself fall, not into forgetting, but into remembering. The deeper kind, the kind that has no words, only knowing. You are not lost. You are in passage, and every passage begins in the dark. Every rebirth begins in stillness. Every homecoming begins in rest. There's a kind of clarity that only comes in darkness, when the noise quiets, when the roles fade, when nothing is left but your breath and your truth. It is not the clarity of answers, but the clarity of presence, a clarity that doesn't require explanation. It simply is. Carl Jung taught that the unconscious is not chaos. It is cosmos, structured, intelligent, alive, not with the logic of the ego, but with the wisdom of symbol, instinct, and soul. When you dream, you are not escaping reality. You are entering a deeper one, a dimension shaped by your wounds, your desires, your archetypes, a realm where the past and the future speak in metaphor. And healing does not require understanding, only attention. You have spent your life trying to be understood by others, by yourself. But the deeper you go, the less you need to be explained. The soul does not ask to be solved. It asks to be witnessed, to be honored, and sometimes to be left unnamed. There is a part of you that cannot be broken, not because it is hard or armored, but because it is untouched by story, untouched by shame. It is not who you think you are. It is who you are when the thinking stops. That part is here now, listening, waiting, breathing with you. Let go of the need to label what you feel. Not everything that arises in the dark is a problem. Some of it is memory. Some of it is shadow. Some of it is your truth, finally finding the courage to surface. Welcome it, without explanation, without judgment. Let be. The more you resist your emotions, the louder they become. The more you chase peace, the further it hides. But when you stop chasing, stop resisting. When you simply sit with what is, the war ends. And in that ending, healing begins. You're not your anxiety. You're the one noticing it. You're not your thoughts. You're the space in which they appear. You're not your past. You are the one carrying its echo. And now, in this moment, you are allowed to put it down. There is nothing you need to hold right now. Nothing you need to fix. Nothing you need to become. Rest is not failure. Silence is not absence. Let yourself be as you are, without effort, without disguise. The ego wants to control, to define, to secure, but the soul only wants to feel, to express, to move. And this space, this quiet unfolding, is the soul's domain. You are in it now, not above it, not outside it, inside it, fully. You are being unmade, not destroyed but released. The parts that never belonged are falling away. The illusions that kept you safe are dissolving. The voices that told you who to be are growing faint. And underneath it all, something still, something strong, something ancient is waking up. Jung once said that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Not who you're praised for being, not who you were shaped to be, but the unfiltered self, wild, deep, whole. That becoming begins here, in surrender, in stillness, in the courage to feel. You're allowed to be afraid, to be tired, to be unsure. These are not flaws. These are signals. The soul speaks through softness, through fatigue, through the moments when you can no longer pretend. Listen to that moment. It is honest. It is sacred. Let your mind drift now. Let it wander without pressure. Let your body sink further. Let gravity do the work. You don't need to hold yourself tonight. You are held by something deeper. There are truths that cannot be spoken, only remembered. And you're remembering them now. Not with thought, but with being. Not with words, but with presence. It is subtle, but it is real. The unconscious does not move in straight lines. It spirals, circles, returns. You may feel like you've been here before. That is not failure. That is rhythm. Integration is not a sprint. It is a return again and again to what matters. Breathe now, not to control, not to manage, just to feel. Inhale, exhale. Let the breath be your tether. Let it remind you that you are alive, even in stillness, especially in stillness. You're not too much. You're not too broken. You're not too late. You are exactly what you're meant to be, in motion, in unfolding, in quiet transformation. Let go of striving. Let go of noise. Let go of everything you were taught had to happen before you could rest. You are already worthy, already enough, already whole. Just be here, breathe here, rest here. Somewhere within you is a voice that has never been allowed to speak. It does not shout. It does not push. It waits, patiently, endlessly. It speaks not in language, but in sensation, in dreams, in the strange longings that rise when you are quiet. That voice is your original self, the one untouched by culture, by fear, by expectation. It is not dramatic. It does not demand attention. But when you're still, when the masks fall, when the stories dissolve, that voice begins to rise. And once you hear it, even faintly, you cannot go back. You cannot pretend not to know. Carl Jung taught that the deepest parts of the psyche do not speak in thoughts, but in images. And if we learn to listen, to truly listen, we begin to see, not with our eyes, but with the soul. You are not just an individual. You are a universe of forgotten parts. The wounded child, the silenced rebel, the hidden artist, the shamed dreamer. These are not roles. They're living forces within you. Some were abandoned because they were inconvenient. Others were lost because they were too beautiful for the world to accept. But none of them are gone. They are waiting for reunion. This is the work, not to fight who you are, but to remember what you are. The dream is not to escape the shadow, but to sit with it, to listen, to welcome. What you resist persists. What you embrace transforms. Let yourself fall into that embrace now. Feel the breath, soft, slow, rising and falling like waves. Let each exhale take with it the tension of the day. Let each inhale carry in the presence of the forgotten. You are not breaking down. You're opening up. You may feel sorrow and not know why. That is not confusion. It is release. The unconscious does not follow time the way the ego does. It stores everything. It waits for moments like this, when the noise is gone, to show you what still lingers. You do not have to solve what rises. You only need to stay, to witness, to feel without fleeing. That is what your inner world has longed for. Not a solution, but your presence. You've spent so long trying to hold yourself together, but you are allowed to fall apart. Falling apart is not failure. It is truth. It is what happens when the soul sheds the layers it no longer needs. The skin of old identities, the armor of silence, the mask of perfection. Let it fall. You are not here to be palatable. You are here to be whole, to feel fully, to speak deeply, to rest without guilt. There is nothing wrong with you. You have simply been taught to fear yourself. But in the dark, when the outer world sleeps, your truth stirs. The shadow does not want to destroy you. It wants to rejoin you. It holds power you abandoned, desires you denied, memories you were too young to hold. These things are not enemies. They are you, waiting to be felt. Jung taught that healing begins when we stop dividing the world into good and bad, right and wrong, acceptable and shameful. The soul is not interested in binaries. It wants totality, inclusion, truth. That truth is not always easy. Sometimes it burns. Sometimes it freezes, but it always liberates. Let yourself drift now, not into forgetting, but into expanding. Let your awareness spread beyond your body, beyond thought, beyond time. Feel yourself stretch into the space between breaths. That space is holy. That space is where the unconscious begins to speak. You may not understand the messages. You may not remember the dreams. But something in you will know, not with your mind, with your being. The old patterns are not failures. They are echoes. You survived in the only ways you knew. But you do not need them now. You are allowed to live differently, to respond with presence instead of fear, to feel instead of freeze, to choose instead of react. That shift begins now, not with effort, but with permission. Permission to rest, to be raw, to feel without editing, to not know, to not perform. The unconscious does not need your clarity. It needs your honesty, your openness, your willingness to enter the mystery without needing to map it. This is not the end. This is the beginning again. A deeper layer, a softer unfolding. You are not falling behind. You are falling in. Breathe, soften, release. Let yourself be undone, not destroyed, just freed. You were never meant to be rigid. You were meant to flow. Let all come. The thoughts, the feelings, the memories. You don't need to push them away. Just let them pass through like clouds across a night sky. You're not your thoughts. You're the sky. There is a rhythm to your healing that no one else can dictate. It is not fast. It is not linear. It does not look the same every day. Some days it feels like silence. Other days like fire. But always it is moving. Always it is working its way through you, even when you feel still. Carl Jung spoke of the process of individuation as a descent, not into madness, but into depth, into the roots of the psyche, into the places where the soul sleeps. Not to wake it violently, but to sit beside it, to listen, to wait. That descent is sacred. It is not a fall. It is a return. You are not weak because you still carry pain. You are not broken because old wounds reopen. Healing is not erasure. It is relationship. It is learning to sit with the wound and offer it presence, not punishment. The pain does not want to hurt you. It wants to be held. And now, in this stillness, in this quiet space between thought and dream, you can hold it, gently, without needing to fix. breathe with it. Let it soften. Let it speak. There is an intelligence in the emotions you've avoided. Anger is not sin. It is boundary. Sadness is not failure. It is memory. Fear is not weakness. It is protection. Each one carries wisdom if you stop silencing them. You do not need to become someone new. You only need to stop abandoning who you've always been. The you that was curious, but told to stay silent. The you that was fierce, but taught to shrink. The you that felt deeply, but learned to numb. These selves are not lost. They are waiting, and they return through sensation, through dreams, through the ache that whispers, I am still here. Let them come. Let them rise. Let the breath be wide enough to hold them all. You don't need to sort them, label them, or explain them. Just let them breathe again. Let yourself breathe again. Jung knew that the psyche will fight for your attention if it is ignored too long. It will send symbols, patterns, illness. It does not do this to punish you, but to reconnect you. The unconscious longs for dialogue, and dialogue begins in stillness. This silence is not empty. It is full of meaning, full of movement, full of echoes that your mind may not hear, but your body does. Your body is the first language of the soul. Every tension speaks. Every breath responds. Every sigh is a conversation between what you feel and what you've forgotten. And what you've forgotten is not gone. It is simply buried beneath layers of doing, of pleasing, of surviving. But in this moment, you're not doing. You're not performing. You're simply being. And in that being, memory returns. Not memory of events, but of essence. Memory of who you were before the world got loud, before you were told who to be, before you confused safety with silence. You're not meant to be silent. You're meant to vibrate, to resonate, to feel the full spectrum of your being and allow its space to move through you. Breathe into that space now, not with control, with curiosity. What would happen if you stopped trying to be okay and simply allowed what is? That allowing is not laziness. It is trust. Trust that your inner world knows what it's doing, that your soul is wiser than your plans, that your healing does not require constant explanation, only presence. Let yourself be present now, with nothing to prove, with nowhere to go, with no one to impress. In this stillness, something shifts. The ego softens. The noise fades. The true voice begins to whisper. It does not shout. It does not rush. It does not need approval. It simply is. Let it be. There is no path forward that bypasses what you feel. The only way out is in. The only way through is through. And through begins here. In this breath. In this body. In this moment. You're safe to feel. You are safe to soften. You're safe to unravel. You've held yourself together for so long. You've carried so much. But now, you get to put it down. Just for now. Just for this moment. The world can wait. You can rest. This rest is not laziness. It is medicine. It is alchemy. It is how the soul begins to reorganize itself after too long in exile. Let the exile end. Not with effort. With permission, you're allowed to come home, not to a place, to a presence. The presence of yourself, unmasked, unedited, unashamed. Breathe into that return. Let it settle like warmth into your chest. Let it dissolve the lies that said you had to earn your existence. You don't. You never did. You belong. You are enough. You are whole. You were never meant to carry so much alone. The weight of suppression, the burden of silence, the invisible pressure to be something you're not. These things leave marks. Not always visible, not always understood, but deep. And tonight, those marks begin to soften, not because they are erased, but because they're finally seen. There's a kind of healing that doesn't look like light. It looks like darkness held without fear, pain acknowledged without panic. Truth spoken in a whisper when once it was buried in shame. This is not dramatic. It is sacred. The most profound healing often happens in the smallest moments, in the breath between memories, in the choice not to run from yourself. Carl Jung believed that our suffering stems from the parts of ourselves we have not yet made conscious. The longer a truth is buried, the more energy it demands. Not out of malice, but because truth longs to be known. And you feel this in the tension in your shoulders, in the tiredness that doesn't go away, in the sudden emotions that rise without explanation. These are messages, not malfunctions. You're not too sensitive. You are not overreacting. You are responding to a lifetime of not being allowed to respond. You learn to stay quiet when something hurt, to stay calm when something shattered. But the body remembers. The unconscious remembers. And it will not be ignored forever. Not because it is punishing you, but because it is saving you, pulling you back to what is real, to what is yours. Breathe, slowly. You don't need to rush this. You are not late. You are not behind. You are precisely where your soul knew you would be when it was time to listen again. The unconscious is not a prison. It is a library, a reservoir of images, instincts, and knowledge older than thought. You do not go there to escape the world. You go there to understand why the world feels the way it does. Your patterns are not curses. They are languages, scripts passed down, lessons you were too young to question. You repeated them because repetition felt safe. But now you see the cost, the hollowness beneath performance, the fatigue behind your perfectionism, the ache that no achievement could silence. And so, in the quiet of this night, something shifts. Not because you forced it, but because you've stopped resisting it. Let yourself feel. Let the numbness wear off, slowly, like ice melting from skin. It may hurt. That's okay. The pain is not the problem. The avoidance is. Feeling is how you return to yourself. You're not required to have words for everything you feel. Not all truth is linguistic. Some truths live in the rhythm of your breathing, in the sudden tears you don't understand, in the dreams that leave you shaken. Those are truths too. Let them live. Let them breathe. Carl Jung once wrote that the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. Not the curated self, not the idealized version, but the messy, complicated, contradictory self that lives beneath the surface. The self that wants, that remembers, that still hurts in places you pretend are healed. That self is not a problem. That self is a home. Come home, not by running back, but by sitting still. Let the silence speak now. You filled so many spaces with words, with doing, with trying to earn a sense of worth that was never meant to be earned. But worth cannot be earned. It can only be remembered. And remembering begins here, in the stillness you used to fear. You're not being punished. You're being purified, not by force, but by presence. The parts of you that still suffer are not weak. They're the last to be touched by love. And love is here now, not as a performance, but as a presence. Yours. Rest in that. Feel how unfamiliar it is to rest without guilt, to feel without fixing, to simply be. That unfamiliarity is not wrong. It's new, and new is often uncomfortable. Let it be. Discomfort is not danger. Sometimes it's birth. You're giving birth to a new way of being, one where you're not always bracing, not always anticipating, one where your nervous system learns to trust quiet again, to feel safe in slowness, to stop scanning for threats when all you want is peace. This takes time. It takes breath. It takes the repetition of nights like this, where you turn toward yourself instead of away, where you listen, where you soften, where you remember. You don't need to know what comes next. The soul doesn't work in plans. It works in pulses, in symbols, in sensations that return again and again until you finally feel them. So feel this now, the ground beneath you, the breath within you, the quiet around you. You are not floating. You are supported. You are not falling. You are returning. Every dream you've forgotten still lives in you. Every truth you were told to deny still burns in your bones. Every time you silenced yourself, a part of you stayed awake, waiting. You are allowed to speak now, even if only in whispers, even if only inside. The soul listens. Always. Sometimes the most profound transformation happens when nothing seems to be happening. When the surface is still, but something below it begins to shift. The unconscious works in silence. It does not seek your attention. It waits for your readiness. And readiness often comes disguised as rest. Carl Jung believed that the unconscious is always communicating through dreams, through symptoms, through emotions we don't understand. It is not mute. It is subtle. And in the quiet moments like this one, its voice grows clearer. Not loud, not aggressive, but unmistakable. You are not here to master the unconscious. You are here to enter into relationship with it. To listen, not as a detective, but as a witness. To recognize the symbols it offers and feel into them without needing to decode them fully. This isn't a test. It's a reunion. Every image that returns again and again in your sleep is a visitor from that deeper world. A message with its own logic. You may not understand it, but you are moved by it. And that movement is the beginning of change. Let yourself be moved now. Not to action, but to presence. Let the body soften even more. Let your breath return to its natural rhythm. You don't have to hold it anymore. You don't have to brace. You're safe now. There is nothing to perform, no one to impress. The role falls away. The need to be anything other than this, it dissolves. And what remains is you, the unfiltered you, the one the world rarely sees, but who has always been real. This is the one who knows how to cry without shame, how to ache without hiding, how to feel without apology, and how to listen to the messages that don't come in words, but in waves. You have spent so long trying to be strong, but strength does not mean resistance. It means truth. It means being so rooted in yourself that you can allow whatever arises to arise without fear. You are strong enough to feel. You are wise enough to not need to understand all. You are whole enough to include even the parts you once denied. The shadow carries all that you pushed away, not because it was evil, but because it was inconvenient, painful, misunderstood. But those parts are not content to stay in exile. They knock through dreams. They rise in triggers. They whisper through fatigue. They don't want to take over. They want to return. And return is not chaos. It is completion. This is not a breakdown. It is a breakthrough. A soft one. A quiet one. A slow thawing of what has been frozen too long. Let it thaw. Let the walls melt. Let the defenses drop. No one will hurt you here. You are with yourself now. And you know the difference between the voice of fear and the voice of truth. The voice of fear says hide. The voice of truth says come home. You're coming home, not to who you were told to be, but to who you've always been, beneath the shame, beneath the masks, beneath the years of pretending. This home is not a destination. It is a way of being, a frequency, a resonance that hums when you stop trying. And in this hum, something ancient awakens. Jung called it the self, not a perfected version of you, but the totality, the union of all things, masculine and feminine, light and dark, conscious and unconscious, not at war, not in balance, but in communion. Let communion happen now, without effort, without thought. Let all the parts of you sit at the same table. The proud one, the ashamed one, the child, the dreamer, the skeptic, all of them belong. You don't need to choose between them. You only need a witness. And in witnessing, integration begins. This is not philosophy. It is embodiment. You may feel warm or cold. You may feel open or numb. You may feel nothing at all. All of is welcome. There is no right way to meet yourself. There's only this moment, and the next, and the next. Let the mind rest. Let the breath deepen. Let the body do what it knows how to do. Hold space for transformation. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are on the edge of becoming. And becoming doesn't rush. It unfolds, like breath, like sleep, like the rhythm of waves against the shore. You don't need to do anything. You are already enough. You are already in it. This is not the end. It is the middle. And the middle is where the magic happens. The part where you stop pretending and start listening. Part where silence becomes a guide. The part where you finally realize you are not the story you were told. You're the space the story happened in. And that space, infinite, mysterious, alive, is what you return to now. Close your eyes, or keep them closed. It doesn't matter. You're already home. There's a moment in every transformation when the old no longer fits, but the new hasn't yet arrived. It is the in-between, the quiet discomfort, the space where illusions dissolve but truth has not yet taken form. This space is not a mistake. It is necessary. It is the womb of becoming. And though it feels like emptiness, it is full of the unseen shifts, the invisible rewirings, the subtle return of self. Carl Jung understood this in-between as sacred. He called it liminality, the threshold where the personality unravels and the deeper self begins to take shape. Not through will, but through surrender. Not through answers, but through honest presence. That is where you are now, in that soft unraveling, in the quiet beneath the ego's noise. You don't need to rush this process. Nothing real is lost. What fades was never you. Only the masks, only the strategies, only the survival shapes you wore to make it through a world that did not yet understand you. But you are beginning to understand yourself. Not in facts, not in lists, but in the way the breath slows when you stop pretending. In the way your chest opens when you no longer need to prove. You're not a problem to be solved. You are a presence to be met. All the questions you carry about your worth, your direction, your past are not meant to be answered tonight. They're meant to be held gently, like fragile things you are finally allowed to touch. Let them exist without needing solutions. You're not here to fix yourself. You are here to feel what you once had to numb, to remember what you once had to forget, to listen to what you once ignored. When you feel the sadness rise without a name, let it come. When you notice a tension that doesn't make sense, don't dismiss it. These are not random sensations. They are returns. The body speaks when the mind grows quiet. And in that speech, there is truth, raw, tender, essential. You have always had the capacity to hold your own pain. It's the pretending it wasn't there that made it heavy. Now, with the noise lowered, with the breath steady, you can meet what you once ran from. And when you do, it begins to change. Not because you fixed it, but because you stopped abandoning it. This is the work, not to heal on command, but to offer a home to all that you've exiled. Jung knew that healing is not light washing away darkness. It is the darkness revealing its meaning. Every fear has a shape. Every shadow has a face. Every ache has a root. And you are beginning to see them, not as enemies, but as parts of you that waited for your attention. You may feel a strange kind of softness now, like something in you has stopped holding its breath. That's not a coincidence. That is release. That is the nervous system shifting from defense to trust. You didn't force it. You allowed it. And that's enough. There are no shortcuts to wholeness. You can't bypass the silence. You can't escape the waiting. The psyche unfolds on its own timeline. And the deepest changes often look like stillness, like rest, like not knowing. Let yourself not know. Let the mind drift. Let the edges blur. You do not need to be clear to be real. You do not need to be certain to be worthy. You can simply be right here, as you are, In this state of rest, the unconscious rises. Slowly, gently. It doesn't crash through the door. It seeps through the cracks, through images, through memories, through the way your body shifts in the dark. You may not remember it all. That's okay. It still reaches you. Jung taught that integration happens through awareness. But awareness isn't just mental. It is physical, emotional, symbolic. Sometimes you integrate not by understanding something, but by allowing it to exist without resistance. This is what you're doing now. You're allowing, not pushing, not denying, just allowing. And in that allowing, you are transforming. The person you thought you had to be is dissolving. The person you truly are is emerging. Slowly, quietly, in breath, in stillness, in presence. You may not feel different yet. That's okay. Seeds do not look like trees, but something has been planted, or maybe something that was planted long ago is finally beginning to grow. Either way, the change is real. Trust it, even if you can't name it. Trust it. Breathe. Soften. Stay. You're not outside of life. You are in it, deep in it, and it is moving through you in ways your conscious mind cannot yet see. That is not failure. That is mystery, and mystery is where the soul lives. You are not here to conquer your darkness. You are here to make peace with it, to sit beside it, to listen, and to remember that nothing in you is unworthy of love. Nothing in you needs to be erased. You are allowed to be in process. You are allowed to rest in the middle. This is not the end. This is not the beginning. This is the sacred, silent space in between, and it is enough. It's easy to believe that change happens in big moments. That growth arrives like lightning, like revelation, like something loud and undeniable. But the psyche doesn't move that way. The soul shifts in shadows, not spotlight. You may not notice transformation until one day something that used to break you no longer does. Until something you used to chase no longer calls. That's how change speaks. In absence, in stillness, in the quiet space left behind when old patterns lose their grip. Carl Jung believed that the unconscious is constantly working to bring balance. Not comfort, balance. And sometimes balance means discomfort. Sometimes the things we fear the most are not punishments, but recalibrations. When you feel like you're unraveling, it might just mean you're becoming honest. When you feel lost, it might mean you've stepped off the scripted path and into your own. Let yourself feel that now. The unanchored softness, the not knowing. It is not danger. It is openness. It is the soul making space. You don't need to fill that space with meaning yet. Let it breathe. Let it echo. Let it stay undefined. You are not here to impress anyone, not even yourself. You are here to meet what is. And what is might be quieter than you expected. It might not be dramatic. That doesn't make it less real. You've carried identities that were given to you before you could question them. You are the strong one. You are the quiet one. You are the one who never complains. But those aren't truths. They are strategies. They were useful once. They protected you. But now you're allowed to ask, who am I underneath them? You're not the role you played. You're the one who chose to play it. And now, you can choose differently. Not all at once. Not with force, but slowly, like night fading into dawn. Let yourself rest in that unfolding. You don't need to force your way into the next version of you. It will arrive. It is arriving. In this moment. In this breath. Jung spoke of the confrontation with the shadow as necessary. Not because the shadow is evil, but because it holds what we have refused to love. Your anger, your envy, your sexuality, your ambition. These are not enemies. They are signals. When ignored, they distort. When embraced, they clarify. You're not wrong for feeling deeply. You're not weak for being affected. These sensitivities are not liabilities. They are pathways into depth, into truth, into the parts of life that most people spend their lives avoiding. But you are not avoiding tonight. You are allowing. That is brave. That is sacred. Feel the breath in your body, not as something to control, but as something ancient, something instinctual. Let the inhale arrive on its own. Let the exhale lengthen. There is nothing to hold now, nothing to grip. You can soften. You can surrender. The unconscious isn't asking you to solve anything. It's asking you to show up, to stop pretending, to stop editing, to feel what is here, even if you don't understand it. You may notice images begin to form behind your eyes. Shapes, colors, people, memories. Don't chase them. Don't explain them. Just let them be. They are not random. They are fragments, reflections, echoes of your inner world reaching out to be known. Jung saw dreams not as distractions, but as messages, the language of the soul. They do not always make sense, but they always matter. Tonight, your dreams will do their work, even if you don't remember them, even if they don't follow logic. The unconscious doesn't care about logic. It cares about meaning, and meaning moves in circles, not lines. Let go of the line tonight. Let the mind loosen its grip. Let yourself drift, not away, but deeper. You are not escaping. You are arriving into yourself, into the part of you that does not speak but sings, that does not argue but echoes, that does not control but remembers. Beneath the thoughts, there is a field of awareness, a space where you're not your story, but the one listening to the story. You are not your fear, but the one who holds it. You are not even your healing. You are the space in which healing happens. And that space, open, silent, eternal, is where you are now. Breathe, rest, allow. You are not falling behind. You're falling inward. Every part of you that you've tried to silence hasn't disappeared. It has waited in the quiet corners of your breath, in the brief moments before sleep, in the eyes of people who triggered something you couldn't name. These pieces do not vanish because you deny them. They wait, patiently, until you're ready to see without judgment and feel without fleeing. That readiness doesn't arrive as confidence. It arrives as stillness. Carl Jung believed that the psyche seeks wholeness, not comfort, not consistency, but wholeness. That means every disowned impulse, every uncomfortable emotion, every contradictory thought is part of your return. Integration is not about becoming a better person. It's about becoming a complete one. And completeness includes the chaotic, the irrational, the things you were taught to reject. You don't need to understand everything that's surfacing now. The body remembers things the mind forgot. The soul stores meaning in images, not words. Let yourself feel what arises, even if it arrives without explanation. Let yourself stay with the feeling, even if it seems out of place. You don't need to solve it. You just need to witness it. You've spent much of your life being conditioned to perform, to be polite instead of honest, to be agreeable instead of real. But here, now, in this space, there is no audience. There are no rules. There is only you, not the version you've sculpted, but the one that watches, the one that breathes, the one that remains when all else is silent. That version doesn't need fixing. It needs remembering. Your impulses are not random. Your longings are not indulgent. They are clues, archetypal forces trying to push through the cracks in your structure, asking to be seen. The one who wants to speak, the one who wants to run, the one who wants to rest. None of them are wrong. They are fragments of the full self you are learning to hold. Let yourself hold them tonight. Let yourself soften into the ache instead of fighting it. The ache is not weakness. It is what healing feels like before it's complete. The trembling is not failure. It is the nervous system learning to believe safety is possible. Let the breath move slowly, like mist over water. Let your chest rise without resistance. Let gravity guide your limbs down. The body knows what to do when the mind steps aside. It knows how to rest. It knows how to return. You don't need to be strong right now. You don't need to be anything but present. Let the unfinished business of the day dissolve behind you. Let the echoes fade. You're not late to your life. You're right on time to yourself. Jung understood that the shadow isn't evil. It's simply the parts of you that learned it was safer not to be seen. The voice that was silenced. The rage that was shamed. The creativity that was dismissed. The desire that was suppressed. But none of it is gone. It lives beneath the surface, waiting for moments like this, when the conscious mind loosens, when the ego sleeps, when the real begins to rise. You are entering a place where nothing needs to be explained, where the unconscious flows freely, where symbols speak louder than thoughts. Dreams will come, maybe not tonight, maybe not vividly, but they will return, not as distractions, but as invitations. Let them guide you. Let them disturb you. Let them crack the surface of your certainty. You are not here to build a perfect story. You are here to live a true one. And truth is never clean. It is messy, alive, changing. Let go of who you think you're supposed to be. Let the silence introduce you to who you are. Not the roles, not the expectations, but the rhythm beneath all of that. The one who watches, the one who waits, the one who has never been lost. Even now, as your thoughts begin to fade, as your breath deepens, as sleep draws near, that part of you is awake. Aware, not anxious, not afraid, just steady, watching the shift, holding the edges, remaining when all else falls away. You are not falling apart. You are falling into yourself, into the space between stories, into the root of your own becoming. Let the breath carry you. Let the body rest. Let the unconscious speak in its own language. You do not need to translate. You only need to feel. This is the descent that heals, the night that restores, the stillness that changes everything, even if nothing looks different in the morning. And it begins again and again with rest. There are moments in life when everything feels like it's moving too fast, and yet something inside you remains still, not from peace, but from being overwhelmed. That stillness isn't always calm. Sometimes it's a pause born from carrying too much for too long. And now, in the quiet, that stillness begins to shift, not toward chaos, but toward relief. Because here in the dark, you're allowed to put all down. There is no timeline for becoming yourself. No single moment where everything makes sense. There are only layers. Some shed with clarity, others with confusion. But each one you let go brings you closer to your center. Not the center others see, but the one you feel when there's nothing left to perform. You don't need to have it all figured out. You don't even need to know what step comes next. The part of you that demands clarity is the part that learned safety was earned through control. But you're learning something new now. That clarity can come from trust, not force. Let the breath lead you. It has always known where to go. Let the body melt into itself. There is no wrong way to rest. No wrong way to feel. You don't need to get this moment right. You only need to be here for it. Sometimes healing feels like nothing at all. Just a soft exhale after a long silence. Just the absence of tension. Just the sense that, for a moment, you are not at war with yourself. That is enough. That is everything. You have spent so much time trying to understand what went wrong. But the question isn't always about what broke. Sometimes it's about what never had space to grow. What part of you never got to speak? What impulse was buried before it even had words? These are not questions to be answered. They are to be carried gently, honestly, without the pressure to solve them. In dreams, the symbols return, not to haunt you, but to help you see. The places, the faces, the emotions that loop again and again, they're not meaningless. They're your inner world made visible. You don't need to interpret them tonight. Just notice. Just feel. Your nervous system knows the difference between performance and presence. It knows when you're faking okay, and it knows when you finally exhale the truth. That's why you feel a shift now. Not because something dramatic happened, but because you stopped pretending. There is nothing small about that. Wholeness is not something you build. It's something you uncover. Something that remains when the layers of adaptation fall away. And those layers don't disappear in one night. They peel slowly, sometimes painfully, sometimes quietly, but they do peel. And each time they do, you get closer to your original rhythm. That rhythm doesn't demand. It doesn't chase. It doesn't need to be anything but itself. It breathes. It waits. It allows. You're learning to live in that rhythm again. Not the world's pace, but your own. Let this be one of those nights that becomes part of your return. A night where you didn't push, where you didn't escape, where you simply stayed with yourself long enough for something soft to unfold. It may not feel like transformation, but it is. You're not who you were this morning. You're not who you'll be tomorrow. Something is shifting, even now, beneath your awareness, beneath your breath. You are loosening. You are remembering. No one else needs to see it for it to be real. You don't need to document it. You don't need to explain it. You just need to trust it. The longing you feel to be more alive, more authentic, more at peace, isn't rooted in lack. It's the voice of your fullness calling you back. You've tasted moments of that fullness, even if briefly, and that memory is enough. It's proof that there's more than what you've settled for, and you don't need to leap to reach it. You only need to stop running from what is already inside you. Let yourself arrive, even if only halfway, even if only for tonight. There are parts of you you've never met, not because they're hidden, but because they've been waiting for you to slow down enough to hear them. That slowness is here now. That listening is beginning. You don't need to have language for what you're experiencing. You don't need to tie it into meaning. The soul understands the unspoken. The unconscious recognizes symbols in the way trees recognize light. Let this moment be light. Not bright, not loud, just enough to keep you connected. To yourself, to the breath, to the silent unfolding that happens only when you stop striving. You're not behind. You're not failing. You're not lost. You are here, more here than you've been in a long time. Let be enough. There are truths that only reveal themselves in the absence of effort. You don't find them by seeking. You find them by surrendering, not as weakness, but as the most sacred kind of strength. It takes courage to stop searching long enough to hear what's already whispering inside you. And in this quiet, it speaks more clearly. The parts of yourself that you were taught to hide are not gone. They didn't disappear, they adapted. They learned to dress themselves as dreams, as projections, as tension in the shoulders or restlessness in the chest. They speak in the ways you were never taught to listen for. But you're listening now, and that changes everything. The deeper you go, the fewer explanations you need. You begin to recognize yourself not in thoughts, but in sensations, in breath, in silence, in a moment where your resistance softens and your body feels a little more like home. That moment is rare, but tonight it's here. You don't need to cling to it. You don't need to name it. Just stay with it. Let it hold you. Let wash over the parts of you still bracing for impact. This is not the storm. This is the stillness after. And in this stillness, you realize you've survived things that no one saw. You carried griefs that never had language. You held yourself together in rooms where no one asked if you were falling apart. That history lives in your breath. And yet here you are, not broken, not ruined, but rebuilding from a quieter place. You may never be able to explain why the tears came, why the anger lived in your chest for years, why a single word or gesture could collapse your strength. But you don't need to explain. You only need to feel, to welcome, to stay. Sometimes the healing isn't in what you understand. It's in what you stop resisting. You don't need to sort every feeling into a category. Some emotions are old visitors returning for a final farewell. Others are new messengers asking to be heard. Either way, let them pass through. Let the doors stay open. You don't have to hold them. The unconscious doesn't demand interpretation. It asks for relationship. And like all relationships, it requires honesty. You don't have to be calm to be connected. You don't have to be wise to be whole. You only need to show up fully without armor. It's okay if you're tired. If you feel like nothing's happening. If the words blur and the meaning slips. Rest doesn't always feel profound, but your nervous system knows. Your inner world knows. Some part of you, the part beneath thought, is already shifting. That shift doesn't come with fireworks. It comes with an exhale, with the sense that maybe, just maybe, you don't have to fight yourself anymore. That's what peace feels like at first. Not joy, not clarity, just the absence of war. The end of arguing with your own emotions. The end of pretending you're not in pain. The beginning of allowing yourself to be exactly what you are without shame. Breathe into that, not to control it, just to be with it. There are parts of you that only come alive in safety. And safety doesn't mean perfection. It means presence, consistency, the quiet sense that you won't abandon yourself, even when it's uncomfortable. You are building that kind of safety now, breath by breath, silence by silence. And in that safety, the real you begins to rise. You're not too late to yourself. You're not too much. You're not too far gone. These are stories written by fear. You don't need to keep reading them. You can write new ones, not all at once, but one sentence at a time, one breath at a time. The truth is, you've always known the way back. You've just been told to ignore the path. But now, the noise is fading. The dust is settling. And you can feel something steady beneath it all, something that's never left. Let that steadiness grow. Let it move through your spine, through your chest, through the small space between thoughts. Let it remind you that this moment, right here, is sacred. You don't need to deserve rest. You don't need to earn peace. You were born deserving of both. And now you're remembering, not with your mind, but with your being. Not all healing feels like progress. Sometimes it feels like sitting still with the ache, like not knowing who you are without the pain, like shedding a skin you've worn so long it began to feel like truth. But discomfort does not mean you're doing it wrong. Often, it means you're finally doing it honestly. There's a quiet intelligence in the way the body holds memory. It stores what the mind forgets. It remembers through tightness, through breath, through the places that go numb when certain names are spoken. These are not signs of weakness. They are signals. And when you slow down enough to notice, they begin to soften. You've been taught to seek resolution, to tie things up neatly, to find a lesson and move on. But some things don't resolve. Some wounds don't close the way you hoped. Some chapters end without clarity. That's not failure. That's life in its rawest form. Open, unfinished, still speaking. Let yourself listen, without rushing to respond, without rushing to move past the discomfort. Let the silence say what language never could. What happened to you matters. What you carry matters. And what you're feeling now, even if it's quiet, even if it's messy, is real. Rest doesn't always feel restful. Sometimes it brings up the very things you've been avoiding. Sometimes the quiet gets louder before it gets soft. But don't mistake that for a problem. It's a clearing. It's the debris rising before the stillness sets in. You may feel waves, memories, longings you thought you buried. Let them rise. Let them pass. The task is not to hold them, not to define them, but to make space for them. They are guests, not tenants. There is strength in your softness. There is clarity in your confusion. There is wisdom in your exhaustion. You are not here to perform resilience. You are here to embody truth. And truth doesn't need to be loud. It doesn't need to be poetic. Sometimes it just sounds like breath, like the quiet flutter of the heart when you allow yourself to feel without flinching. What you feel now might not have words. It might not have shape. That's okay. You don't need to analyze it. Just sit with it. Give it the one thing it was denied for so long: your presence. In presence, things begin to shift. Not because you force them to, but because you finally stop resisting. There's a subtle power in being still with yourself. Not demanding answers, just listening, just allowing. This is what return feels like. Not a grand homecoming, but a small moment of stillness. A breath that feels a little deeper. A thought that doesn't spiral. A sigh you didn't know you were holding. You don't need to find meaning in everything. Some experiences simply are. Some emotions don't need a reason, only a witness. You are that witness now. Your pain doesn't need a timeline. Your grief doesn't need to make sense. Your healing doesn't need to look like anyone else's. This is your rhythm, and it's enough. Let the body drop further. Let the jaw unclench. Let the thoughts slow their pace. You're not behind. You're not stuck. You're exactly where something new begins, in the quiet, in the slow, in the part of the journey that no one sees but changes everything. You're not what happened to you. You're not what was denied to you. You are the space that holds all of it without collapsing. That space is sacred. That space is you. Let the breath rise again, not because you tell it to, but because it chooses to. Let it remind you that you are here, that you're still choosing to be here, even on the days when that choice feels heavy. You don't need to heal all at once. You don't need to finish anything tonight. You only need to rest. Deeply, honestly, without apology. There is power in this stillness, in this drifting, in this surrender that is not giving up, but giving in to what is, to who you are, to what you feel. Nothing more is needed right now. Let the silence hold you. You spent years holding yourself together in places no one ever saw. Behind the smile, behind the calm, behind the way you showed up again and again despite the ache. That quiet endurance wasn't weakness, it was sacred. It kept you going. But now, something deeper is being asked of you. Not survival, but softness. Softness is not collapse. It is not fragility. It is the courage to be with what is real, even when it's raw, even when it doesn't have a name. You don't need to explain this moment. You don't need to justify your tiredness or your stillness. You only need to be here in your body as you are. There's a wisdom in you that has nothing to do with words. It shows up in the way your breath deepens when you stop pushing, in the way your hands unclench when you no longer pretend, in the way your chest opens, not in pride but in permission. You are allowed to stop performing. You are allowed to stop carrying what was never yours. The pressure to be okay, the pressure to have answers, the pressure to know what comes next. These are stories that were handed to you. You don't have to keep reading them. Let them fall away, not in anger, just in truth. The world may never ask for your full self, but you can. You can meet the parts that didn't get applause, the parts that felt too much, the parts that never made sense to anyone but you. You don't need to be understood to be worthy. What you're feeling now might be nothing at all. Just emptiness. Just stillness. Let it be. Let it stretch out. Let it become your resting place for now. Not everything has to be filled. We've been taught that stillness is a void. Something to avoid. Something to escape with more noise, more doing, more fixing. But the stillness you're entering now is not a void. It's a return, a reconnection, a remembering. This is where the self begins to speak. Not the identity, not the mask, but the presence beneath all of that. The self that doesn't chase. The self that watches. The self that waits. You're meeting yourself here, in silence, in rest, in the absence of roles. That meeting may not come with fireworks. It may come with breath, with a slow drift into sleep, with a quiet knowing that somehow something is different, not fixed, but seen. And that's all any part of you has ever wanted, to be seen. to be held, to be allowed. There is no rush now. Nothing you need to solve. Nothing you need to prove. You can let your thoughts wander. You can let your emotions pass like weather. You can release the grip of needing to do it right. This moment is already enough. Your body knows what to do. It knows how to rest when you stop interrupting. It knows how to regulate when you stop demanding performance. Give it space. Give it trust. There may be a soft ache in you. Not pain, exactly, just something tender. Something honest. Let it stay. Let it speak if it wants to. Let it simply breathe if it doesn't. You're no longer ignoring yourself. And that alone is healing. You've carried silence for years, the kind that isn't peaceful, but suffocating. Now, you're stepping into a new kind of silence. One that breathes. One that listens. One that doesn't punish, but welcomes. Welcome yourself back, even if only a little. Even if only in this breath. There's a night inside you that is not dark. It is deep, a place of roots, a place of origins, where the mind surrenders and the soul remembers. You are not lost there. You are found. Let yourself be found. Let the walls dissolve. Let the story pause. Let the breath remind you that you're alive not because you are striving, but because you are here. Here, in this moment, with no need to be anything else. There is nothing more to carry tonight. Let the breath carry you. Let the sleep come. Let yourself fall. Not into forgetting, but into belonging. There is a difference between silence and stillness. Silence can be empty, forced, the result of holding back what aches to be spoken. But stillness is alive. It listens. It breathes with you. And in moments like this, when the world has quieted and your body has surrendered to gravity, that stillness begins to open something deeper. Not because you're trying, but because you finally stopped trying. This is when the unconscious begins to rise, not as noise, but as texture, as memory, as a slow unfolding of what was hidden. Jung understood that the unconscious isn't a dark vault to be avoided, but a living dimension of the psyche that seeks wholeness. And wholeness doesn't mean resolving every conflict. It means being able to sit with all of it, to hold the contradictions without needing them to disappear. You feel that now, in the way your breath has slowed, in the way your thoughts feel less like commands and more like waves passing and dissolving. This is the descent inward, not into confusion, but into complexity, the kind of truth that doesn't need words to be real. You're not here to fix yourself tonight. You're not here to make sense of it all. You're here to remember, quietly, what your instincts have always known, that there is more to you than what you show, more than what you've lost, more than what others have reflected back. There is a part of you that has never been edited, never been tamed, never agreed to be silenced. It lives in your dreams, in your sudden emotions, in your inexplicable preferences. And when you are still enough, it returns, not loudly, not dramatically, but with a quiet confidence that says, I never left. You don't need to reach for it. You only need to stop running from yourself. Let the breath continue. Not deep, not controlled, just natural. Let the weight of the day dissolve. Not because you've completed something, but because the performance is over. There's nothing left to earn right now. Not love, not peace, not worth. You already are. Beneath every idea of improvement is the truth that you began whole. And remembering that is the real work. The unconscious doesn't need your effort. It needs your honesty. And honesty begins when you admit what you've ignored. The sadness that has no story, the ache that never found name, the weariness that comes not from effort, but from pretending. These are not symptoms of failure. They are evidence of survival. You've been surviving for a long time. That's nothing to be ashamed of. But now you get to soften. You get to release. You get to ask not, how do I become better? But what part of me have I left behind to seem acceptable? This is what integration asks for, not change, but inclusion. The return of the hidden, the shadowed, the misunderstood. And not every part of you will be easy to love. Some of them will confuse you. Some will scare you. But they are yours. And that makes them sacred. Let them rise now, not in chaos, but in quiet. Let them be seen in the flicker of your awareness, in the warmth of your presence, in the gentleness of your breath. There is no test here, no deadline, no measure. This moment is not a task. It is a doorway. You don't need to walk through it. You only need to notice that it's open. And perhaps, by doing nothing but staying, you'll find yourself already on the other side, in the space where you're not fragmented, not hidden, not explained, just present. And presence, more than anything else, is what you've been longing for. Not from others, but from yourself. The part of you that doesn't rush, that doesn't judge, that doesn't need meaning in every sensation. That part is here now, breathing with you, holding space for you to rest. Let that be enough. Let that carry you through the drift into sleep. Not as escape, but as reunion. There comes a point when the thoughts begin to slow, not because you've silenced them, but because they've said enough. They've spun their stories, circled their fears, repeated what they knew. And now they pause, not in defeat, but in fatigue. The mind is not the enemy. It's just tired. It has tried for so long to carry what the soul was meant to hold. Tonight, it gets a rest too. There's something different about this silence. It isn't the absence of sound, but the presence of depth. You can feel it in the space between your thoughts, in the quiet rhythm of your breath, in the way your body has stopped bracing for impact. You're no longer expecting the next wave of pressure, the next task, the next decision. There is nothing to fix here, nothing to plan, nothing to hide. You're not being watched. You're not being judged. You're not being measured. This moment is entirely yours. Not the performative version of you, not the polished one, but the one that wakes in the dark before thought catches up. The one who feels before language. The one who dreams not of success or structure, but of return. Return to the root, to essence, to the part of you that's older than memory, deeper than fear. That part has no name, no shape, no need for validation. It simply is, and it has always been waiting for a moment like this. This isn't about getting better. It's about getting closer to yourself, to the parts of you that you exiled to appear composed. You didn't abandon them because you were cruel. You abandoned them because you were scared, because someone taught you they weren't welcome. But they never left. They just waited quietly behind the eyes of strangers, behind your quick reactions, behind the dreams that you couldn't explain. And now they stir. They don't want to fight. They want to be seen. You're safe to see them now. Safe to feel without fixing, to remember without collapsing. There's a wisdom in you that no one taught. It didn't come from books or systems or rules. It came from stillness, from watching, from breaking and returning. It came from what didn't make sense to anyone, but made you who you are. Every pattern you carry, even the ones you hate, began as a form of protection. Every time you shut down, every time you lashed out, every time you disappear behind a smile, it was the best choice your nervous system could make in that moment. You don't have to shame the version of you who survived. You get to thank them. You get to say, "You kept me safe, and now I can take it from here." That transition doesn't happen in an instant. It unfolds quietly across thousands of small decisions. The decision to breathe, to pause, to stay with the feeling 2 seconds longer than usual, to stop interrupting yourself when something true begins to rise. That's how self-trust grows, not through logic, but through presence. The mind will keep trying to pull you back into analysis. That's okay. Let speak, let question, but don't follow. Let it pass through like a breeze and return to the deeper current. The one that doesn't demand, the one that doesn't panic, the one that simply waits deep in your belly, behind your ribs, steady and silent. That is your knowing. It doesn't shout because it doesn't have to. You spent years collecting answers. Now you get to release the need for them. You don't need to explain why you're tired. You don't need to justify your sadness. Not everything you feel is a puzzle. Some things are just the residue of a life lived in resistance. Some things are meant to be felt, not fixed. And in feeling them, you make space. Space for rest, for breath, for the return of what was too wild to be managed. That wildness is not chaos. It is memory. It is clarity. It is your original rhythm. The one you danced to before you were taught to stand still and smile. Let your body remember that rhythm. You don't have to move. You don't have to act. Just let it stir beneath the surface. Let it remind you that you're not here to perform calm. You're here to inhabit it, to become so rooted in yourself that no external demand can shake you from your own presence. And presence, real presence, is what changes everything. It doesn't need a stage. It doesn't need applause. It just needs you. You unclenched. You unscripted. You fully here in this breath with no part of yourself left behind. This is the reunion you didn't know you were longing for. Not with someone else, but with the parts of yourself you stopped calling home. They're still here. They're always here, waiting for this silence, this softness, this surrender. You're not drifting away. You're drifting deeper into the parts of yourself you forgot how to access, into the knowing that was never lost, only covered. Let the mind grow quieter now. Let the breath do what it's always known how to do. Let the body lead. Let the unconscious rise, not as a threat, but as a guide. You don't need light to see. You don't need clarity to trust. You're being held by something older than fear, something more enduring than doubt. You are not broken. You are not missing anything. You're already enough, already whole, already home. The deeper you go, the less you need language, the less you need explanation, strategy or defense. What remains isn't logic or analysis. It's sensation, rhythm, a quiet pulse beneath the noise that says, this is who you've always been. You don't have to reach for it. You only have to stop turning away. And now, as your breath softens and your thoughts begin to dissolve into the quiet, that truth becomes more tangible than anything spoken aloud. You're not healing because something is wrong with you. You are healing because you've carried too much that wasn't yours, lived too long in shapes that never fit, spoken words that weren't your own just to be accepted. But the body remembers the original frequency, the one before the distortion. And when you stop forcing yourself into clarity, the clarity returns on its own. Not as answers, but as alignment. This stillness is not an interruption. It is the point. There's something sacred about falling apart slowly. When you don't resist it, when you don't rush it, when you allow it to happen as softly as nightfall, it doesn't feel like collapse. It feels like return, like gravity, but gentler. You're not unraveling into nothing. You're peeling back the performance to remember what's underneath. And underneath, there is no shame. There is no timeline. There is only breath, warmth, and the slow rhythm of your own becoming. You've mistaken anxiety for motivation. You've mistaken tension for discipline. You've mistaken control for safety. But now, lying here, none of those are necessary. You're no less worthy because you've paused. You're no less alive because you've stopped striving. The deepest transformation doesn't announce itself. It happens quietly when you finally stop holding your breath. It's happening now. The unconscious never needed your effort. It needed your space. And now that you've stopped filling every silence, it begins to speak, not with urgency, but with symbols, with dreams, with sensations you don't need to translate. You don't need to make sense of everything. You only need to be in relationship with what's real. And what's real now is this. You are here, you are breathing, and you're no longer pretending. You can feel it in the way your chest doesn't tighten at the thought of letting go, in the way your body no longer braces for the next demand. This is what safety feels like, not because everything is perfect, but because you've stopped rejecting the present. The shadow loses its bite when it's no longer feared. The ache loses its chaos when it's no longer shamed. The parts of you that you called too much, too dark, too messy, they aren't problems. They're pieces, and the whole cannot form without them. There is no one you need to become. There is only the version of you that emerges when nothing else is expected. And that version doesn't speak in accomplishments. It speaks in presence, in breath, in the softness that arrives when your nervous system finally trusts that you are not going to abandon yourself again. You were never meant to walk through life armored. You learned to because you had to, because the world taught you that survival came through silence, through compliance, through shrinking. But survival is not living. And now, in this stillness, you get to choose differently. You get to breathe with your whole body. You get to grieve the years you spent edited. You get to welcome the parts of you that once only had permission to speak in dreams. You may not remember your dreams tonight, but they'll still reach you. Because dreams aren't entertainment. They're messages. They're the language your soul speaks when words no longer serve. And tonight, that language returns. Not because you asked, but because you stopped resisting. Sleep is an escape. It's return. It's where the conscious mind steps aside so the unconscious can cleanse, can process, can remember. You're not drifting away. You are drifting in. Into the part of yourself that doesn't need clarity to be complete. Into the part that never stopped watching, never stopped waiting. There is no arrival point. There is no now I am healed moment. There is only deeper presence, softer honesty, the ability to stay with what is, rather than escape into what could be. This is the slow miracle of wholeness. And it doesn't always feel like bliss. Sometimes it feels like breath, like gravity, like sleep that finally comes without force. You don't need to tell this story to anyone. It isn't for display. It's for you. And it's enough. The fact that you're here, letting go of performance, even just for tonight, is enough. No one needs to see it. No one needs to understand it. You don't need to post about it, explain it, wrap it in language. You're allowed to have a sacred inner world that belongs to no one else. A world that breathes with you. And tonight, it breathed a little easier. The mind may try to interrupt. It may worry that stillness means forgetting. But you're not forgetting. You are remembering differently. Not through thought, but through being. Through the feeling that you are no longer divided from yourself. This is what healing feels like in real time. Not a straight line, not a perfect piece, but presence. Unforced, undemanding. Enough. It's strange how the deepest parts of yourself don't arrive with clarity, but with sensation. They don't explain, they emerge. Slowly, timidly, as if they're checking whether you'll send them away like before. You used to. You didn't mean to, but you did. You silenced the emotion before it formed. You dismissed the instinct before it settled. You carried on, because it was safer to move than to feel. But now you're not moving. Now you're still. And in that stillness, they come. The parts that were forgotten. The impulses that never had names. The ache that waited in the background, quiet and patient. This is not collapse. This is the moment before reintegration. It doesn't have fireworks. It has breath. It has weight. It has presence. You are not imagining your tiredness. It's not just from work or time or the noise of the world. It's from years of internal effort, carrying roles, monitoring emotions, performing peace when chaos lived just beneath the surface. The work is exhausting, and the body remembers it all. It carries what the mind couldn't bear to name. The tension wasn't random. The disconnection wasn't failure. They were signals. And now, you're finally listening. Let the body speak. Let the breath widen. You're not too much. You're not behind. The fact that you are here now, resting without demand, is already the shift. The transformation doesn't begin when something new arrives. It begins when the old ways are no longer needed. When a mask becomes too heavy to wear through the night. When a silence feels kinder than the noise you once called safety. That is this moment, right now. Not because you planned it, but because something in you has stopped resisting. You can feel the difference, not in thought, but in texture. The body is less tense. The breath is less guarded. The thoughts no longer need to explain themselves. There's no argument happening in your chest. No internal court debating whether you're allowed to rest. You simply are. That's what wholeness begins to feel like. Not joy, not lightness, just the absence of war. There may still be noise in the background. That's fine. You don't need complete quiet to find peace. The noise doesn't define you. Your reaction to it does. And right now, your reaction is different. You're letting it be. You're letting everything be. This is presence. This is power. Carl Jung believed that the soul longs for meaning more than comfort. That pain often arises when the psyche is blocked from expressing something vital. And what's vital now is not some grand realization. It's that you're finally letting your own experience be valid, without needing to package it, without needing to justify it. What you feel is enough. What you carry matters. You matter. There is nothing passive about this stillness. It is deeply active in ways the conscious mind can't measure. Something is shifting beneath the surface. You don't need to describe it. You don't need to give it a name. It will name itself. The body will carry it. The dreams will hold it. And your only task, is to stay soft enough to allow it. You've done enough pushing. You've done enough earning. Rest is not a prize. It's a right. And you're remembering that now. In the way your muscles yield. In the way your spine melts into gravity. In the way the edges of your awareness begin to blur. Not because you're losing touch, because you're regaining it. Sleep isn't an escape. It's a return into the deeper language of the unconscious, into the symbols that speak where thought cannot. You may dream tonight, or you may not. Either way, the process continues. Whether you remember or not, the soul knows the way home. Let it take you, not in leaps, in breath, not in logic, in rhythm, not in effort, in trust. What's waiting for you isn't revelation, it's reunion. With a part of you that doesn't rush, that doesn't strive, that doesn't need to be seen to exist. This part has been with you from the beginning. You didn't lose it. You only stopped listening. And now, in this quiet, you hear it again. In the breath that rises without your permission. In the emotion that swells without a story. In the peace that arrives before you have a reason to deserve it. Let all be. The breath, the body, the drift. You're not falling away. You're falling inward. You don't need to do anything with this moment. You don't need to label it as healing or clarity or integration. It is what it is, and that is enough. Let your shoulders drop. Let your jaw relax. Let your thoughts scatter like dust. There's nothing left to hold together. The self you thought you needed to manage doesn't need management. It needs permission to exist, to unfold, to take up space in your own experience. You're already doing it, right now, without effort, without force. And in that effortless allowing, you're finding the home you once thought was lost. Somewhere inside you, there's a rhythm older than your name, older than your memories. It's the rhythm of what you were before you were explained, before anyone told you who to be, how to behave, what parts to hide. That rhythm doesn't speak in words. It hums, pulses, drifts under the surface of all the noise you've gathered across a lifetime. And now, in this moment, that rhythm has space to rise. Because the mind is no longer shouting. The body is no longer bracing. And the breath, steady and slow, has become a door to something much deeper. You don't need to strive anymore. There's no one here asking for performance. No one grading your stillness. This moment isn't an assignment. It isn't another task to get right. It's what remains when everything else is let go. The story pauses. The self that has tried so hard to do, to prove, to manage, goes quiet. And what remains is presence. Not dramatic, not new, but undeniably true. You may feel strange now. Not because something's wrong, but because the familiar tension is absent. You're so used to holding, to tightening, to preparing for the next problem. That peace can feel like foreign territory. Let it be strange. Let it be unfamiliar. Let it slowly become the new normal. Because you're not meant to live in perpetual fight or flight. You're not a machine. You're not a brand. You're a living, breathing organism that longs to feel, to soften, to be. The thoughts will try to return. That's their nature. Let them. Don't fight. Don't follow. Watch them come, and then let them go like waves rising and falling. Each wave dissolves. Each breath resets the tide. You don't need to push them away. They lose their power the moment you stop resisting them. You're not your thoughts. You are the space in which they happen. You are the awareness watching them pass. This is the truth that lives in stillness. You are more than your content. You are more than your fears. You are not the story. You are the silence underneath it. And in that silence, everything that matters begins to return. Not because you grasped it, because you stopped chasing. Wholeness doesn't arrive in force. It arrives in surrender. And this is surrender, not collapse, not passivity, but the willingness to feel without managing. To stop needing to be anything other than what is. That might feel raw. It might feel uncomfortable. You've spent so long preparing yourself against vulnerability that to finally relax into it feels risky. But there is no threat here. No enemy in the dark. Only you. And you're not here to harm yourself. You are here to return. Sometimes the most healing thing you can do is nothing. No fixing. No reframing. No optimizing. Just presence. Just being with what is. And if what is right now is heaviness, fatigue, numbness, so be it. There is no wrong way to be. There's only this breath and the next, and the choice not to abandon yourself again. You're not a project. You are not broken glass to be repaired. You are soil. You are water. You are light moving through shadow. This process cannot be rushed because it doesn't belong to time. It belongs to rhythm. And rhythm belongs to the body, not the mind. Let the body lead now. Let's soften where it's ready. Let's stay tense where it isn't. You don't need to force a single inch of yourself to change in order to be worthy of peace. What you're meeting now is not a new version of you. It's the version that was buried, covered in obligation, muted by fear, shaped by expectation. It is not emerging to impress you. It is emerging because you're finally safe enough to see it. And what it brings is not always joy. It may bring grief. It may bring memory. It may bring feelings you don't have language for. That's okay. You're not required to understand everything you feel. You are only required to feel it and stay. Let the breath remind you you're here. Let the weight of your body remind you you're allowed to rest. Let the silence remind you that this space, this moment, this pause is enough. Even without answers, especially without answers. The unconscious doesn't need your precision. It needs your presence. It doesn't speak in linear form. It speaks in symbol, in movement, in instinct. And you are closer to it now than you've ever been while wide awake. This is the bridge. This is the space between the conscious and the deep. You may not remember what happens after this moment. You may fall into sleep, into dreams, into formlessness. But your system remembers. Your soul remembers. Something is shifting even now. Let go of the idea that healing is loud, that it feels like progress, that you'll know when it arrives. Most healing happens like this, quietly, beneath language, in the soft hour when the mind lets go and the body breathes without fear. You don't need to interfere. Just keep breathing. Keep being. You're not disappearing. You're becoming whole. Not by doing more, but by finally doing nothing at all. You may have been taught that peace is something you earn, that you get to rest only after achievement, after endurance, after you've proven something. But peace is not the prize for survival. It is the foundation of becoming. And tonight, for once, you are not earning it. You are remembering it. It doesn't come through control, through perfect behavior, through mastering your thoughts. It arrives when you allow what is exactly as it is, without interruption. That allowing is not weakness. It is the most courageous thing you've done all day. It's easy to keep going, to keep talking, to keep thinking. But to stop, to soften, to breathe without demand, that is strength. The kind of strength that comes not from resistance, but from truth. From being willing to exist without apology. You're lying here now, and your body is slowly beginning to trust that it no longer needs to fight, that it no longer needs to hold its breath. That safety is not something you perform, but something you return to. The mind may still try to explain, to interrupt, to tighten its grip. Let it. There is no enemy here. Even your thoughts are not against you. They're simply habits, and habits unravel not through war, but through presence. Each breath you take now is an invitation, not to fix, but to feel, not to push, but to listen, to hear what's been buried beneath the noise, beneath the roles, beneath the old stories that said you were only worthy when you were useful. Those stories may return tomorrow, but tonight they can rest too. You don't need to be anything. You don't need to resolve anything. The truth of this moment is enough. There is a silence beneath your thoughts that you've touched before, though maybe only for moments. In awe, in grief, in surrender. It's a silence that doesn't need to be understood, only entered. And you're entering it now, slowly, honestly, not as a technique, but as a truth. Even if your body is still holding tension, even if your chest is tight, even if the sleep doesn't come easily, none of that disqualifies you. You're still doing the work, because the work is simply not abandoning yourself when discomfort arrives. It's staying, not because it's easy, because it's real. What you're doing now is more profound than you know. You are reteaching yourself safety, in your own skin, in your own breath, without performance, without pushing. This is reparenting. This is repair, not the kind that comes with grand declarations. The kind that comes through presence, breath, and the decision not to flee when things go quiet. You may feel a strange sadness beneath the stillness. That's okay. That's what happens when you stop distracting yourself. What was avoided rises, not to destroy you, but to be released. Let it rise. Let it linger. You don't need to label it. You don't need to run from it. What you feel now may be old. So old it doesn't belong to a memory, but to a mood, to a sensation that's never been spoken aloud. You're allowed to feel things you don't understand. You're allowed to grieve what was never named. This is not regression. This is return. You are not falling backwards. You're falling inwards. And what meets you there is not emptiness. It is not failure. It is your own forgotten center, untouched by shame, untouched by noise, untouched by all the versions of you the world try to shape. Carl Jung spoke of this as individuation, not the building of a new self, but the uncovering of the original one. Not becoming someone else, but becoming what you always were before the distortions. That is what you're doing now. Not in effort, but in release. Not in insight, but in quiet. You are not solving your life in this moment. You are learning to live it without editing. That is more than enough. You're learning to trust the drift, the breath, the rising and falling of sensation without attaching a meaning to every moment. And that trust will change you more than any explanation ever could. There are no requirements here. No milestones. No judgment. Only breath. Only now. And that now is doing its own quiet work. It is softening your nervous system. It is unwinding patterns too subtle for language. It is teaching your body what it means to exist without demand. You may forget this in the morning. That's okay. The work is still being done. It isn't stored in memory. It's stored in presence. And presence is happening now. Let the edges blur. Let your identity dissolve just a little. You are not the mask you wear. You are not the roles you play. You are the space beneath them. The space that holds joy and sorrow without needing to resolve them. The space that existed before fear taught you to hide. Let that space expand. Let it hold you. Let it breathe with you. You are not broken. You are not late. You are not behind. You are inside the exact moment you were meant to arrive at. And it requires nothing from you but this: stay. Sometimes the most profound recognition is not "I understand," but simply "I feel." Not with words, not with explanation, but with the slow, steady return of something in your body that says, "This moment is safe." You may not be able to point to why. There may be no evidence for it. And yet it arrives, quietly, gently, as a breath that no longer feels constrained, as an exhale that no longer trembles. This is the subtle return to presence. Not dramatic, not loud, but unmistakable in the way it changes the air around your thoughts. You've spent so long carrying versions of yourself that you thought were necessary. Polished, functional, agreeable. But there was always something beneath them, wasn't there? Something less manageable. Something more honest. It waited through the years. Through every moment you nodded when you wanted to scream. Through every silence you kept to maintain peace that wasn't real. That something is not broken. It is your truth. And now, in this moment, in this breath, you are closer to it than you've been in a long time. You don't need to say anything. You don't need to process it out loud. The moment doesn't require articulation. It requires attention. Just let it move through you like water through soil. Not because you're trying to heal, but because you've stopped interfering with your own rhythm. The unconscious doesn't demand urgency. It responds to presence. And presence is exactly what you're offering right now. That's why the body is softening. That's why the thoughts are slowing. That's why the silence feels less like a void and more like a beginning. It's okay if emotion comes. It doesn't need to make sense. There's no requirement for clarity in this space. You've spent so much time trying to categorize every feeling, trying to match it to a reason, trying to rationalize what rises. But now let it be free. Let it rise without resistance. Let it fall without judgment. This is the feeling of the inner world unfolding, not for display, not for productivity, but because it was never meant to be silent. This is what it feels like to stop abandoning yourself. It doesn't arrive with declarations. It arrives in the way you stay still a little longer, in the way you soften when discomfort rises rather than bracing, in the way you breathe even when it hurts. You're no longer rejecting the moment. That alone is healing. And still, the mind may come. It may ask questions. It may scan for something to fix. Let it come, but don't follow. Watch it pass. You are not at war with your thoughts. They are echoes. They are habits. They are not enemies. They are remnants of years spent surviving. Let them rise. Let them dissolve. The breath knows the way home. Each inhale reconnects you to what is. Each exhale releases what no longer fits. You don't need to force anything. There is no test, no goal. This space is not about transformation. It is about return. Return to the version of you that never needed to be explained. The part of you that existed before the language of roles and labels. That part still lives within you. It shows up in flashes, in stillness, in dreams that don't make sense but feel familiar, in the way your body responds to truth even when your mind hasn't caught up. Carl Jung believed that these fragments, the images, The impulses, the strange but meaningful patterns, were the psyche's way of guiding itself back into wholeness. Not by force, by reflection. And reflection requires slowness. You are slow now, not behind, not stuck, just slow, purposefully, gratefully. You've moved fast for so long. You've climbed, pushed, endured. But speed doesn't always equal direction. And now, in this pace, you can finally see the path that's always been beneath you. Let yourself be guided, not by certainty, but by rhythm. Let the images pass like clouds. Let the old fears lose their sharpness. They can't harm you now, not because they're gone, but because you're no longer gripping them. What you hold too tightly becomes distorted. What you release becomes part of you again. You are not a set of problems to be solved. You are a mystery to be lived, a landscape that breathes. And tonight, this landscape expands. Slowly, with each breath, you take back the space that was once collapsed by fear, by shame, by pressure to be palatable. That pressure is fading now. In its place, there is room for depth, for contradiction, for the unspeakable to be welcomed. And when sleep arrives, if it hasn't already, it will not be escape. It will be passage, through images that carry meaning deeper than thought, through spaces in the psyche where time bends and memory speaks in symbol. You don't need to remember the journey for it to change you. You only need to allow it. That's what you're doing now. Allowing. Not managing. Not fixing. Just allowing. Let your body know that it's allowed to rest. Let your mind know that it doesn't have to guard the door anymore. Let your soul stretch into the silence. Not to find anything, but to remember everything. This is what return feels like. And you are here. There's a stillness that comes only after the performance ends. Not the one you show others, but the one you carry for yourself. The effort to appear okay, the constant scanning for what needs improvement, the pressure to meet a standard you never agreed to. That quiet voice that always asks, "What more should I be doing?" It fades here. It's not silenced by force, but by irrelevance. In this space, there is nothing more to do. There is only the presence of what already is, and that is enough. You've likely spent years believing you needed to earn rest. That peace was something that came after proving, achieving, fixing. But it was never meant to be delayed until you became someone else. It was always meant to be practiced now, here, in the body you live in, with the emotions you carry. This moment does not need your excellence. It needs your honesty. It needs your breath. It needs you, not the idea of you, but the one who watches, who senses, who breathes and wonders and feels without words. It's tempting to think there's something wrong when you feel empty. But emptiness is not a flaw. It is often the beginning of presence. When the noise recedes, when the striving falls quiet, when the performance ends, what's left is space. Space for the real, for the voice you silenced, for the pulse beneath the mask. And in that space, something forgotten begins to move. Not all feelings are loud. Some are like water, slowly seeping through the cracks of a wall built too high, too long ago. You may not know what the emotion is, only that something's shifting. That the weight you've carried for years doesn't press as hard tonight. That the silence feels less threatening. That being with yourself doesn't feel like punishment anymore. Let that be enough. Let yourself drift into this soft dissolution, not of identity, but of tension. You are not losing anything essential. You're releasing the effort to control what was never meant to be controlled. The natural flow of your inner world. It doesn't need to be fixed. It needs to be felt. What rises now may have no story. It may not belong to memory or trauma. It may simply be sensation, tightness, warmth, stillness, an urge to cry without knowing why. Let all be. Let come and go without question. Your task is not to manage this experience. is to allow it to unfold on its own terms. Carl Jung believed that much of human suffering arises from disconnection, from being cut off from our deeper nature, our instincts, our symbolic language. But that connection isn't restored through thinking. It's restored through descent into the body, into dreams, into the unspoken places of your own psyche. That descent is happening now, gently, breath by breath. You're not falling. You are returning to the parts of yourself that you were told were unacceptable, to the energies you repressed so you could belong, to the feelings you buried so others would stay. And now that you are here alone, without an audience, you can invite them back. This is not regression. This is reclamation. You are reclaiming your sadness, your rage, your joy, your silence, not as problems to be solved, but as aspects of your totality. They belong. They are pieces of your original self before the editing began. And they are not here to hurt you. They are here to reintegrate, to remind you that wholeness includes contradiction. You may feel the pull of sleep, or you may hover in that quiet state where you're neither awake nor dreaming. Trust that space. That is where the deeper work is happening. Your nervous system is recalibrating. Your unconscious is rearranging. Nothing visible may happen, and yet something permanent is shifting. You do not need to be aware of it. You only need to stay. The breath will carry you. The weight of your body on the bed will hold you. The silence will guide you. Let yourself be passive now, in the most sacred sense of the word. You are not absent. You are receptive. This is a different kind of power. One not built on assertion or force, but on surrender to what is. You're not disappearing. You're becoming more fully here. You may notice a subtle warmth spreading across your chest, or a loosening in your jaw, or a tension in your stomach that finally begins to fade. These are signs, not of something being fixed, but of something finally being heard. The body does not betray. It waits. And tonight, it's no longer waiting alone. You are showing up for yourself in the only way that matters. Not with plans, not with solutions, but with presence. Let that presence deepen. Let the muscles soften. Let your mind continue to slow. You're not forcing anything now. You are in rhythm with something older than thought. And in that rhythm, you are safe. By now, the edges of your thoughts may feel soft. The boundaries between past and present, memory and dream, identity and sensation, less defined, more fluid. This is not confusion. This is what it feels like to return to your natural state of depth, where not everything must be categorized, where not everything needs to be known in order to be real. You are drifting closer to what the unconscious has always held for you. The truth that your being is wider than language, older than narrative, and softer than all the ways you tried to be hard just to survive. There is nothing left to solve here. That part of the day is over. And so much of your suffering wasn't from the events themselves, but from the internal war you waged, trying to make sense of them, trying to organize your pain into acceptable stories. But pain doesn't follow a timeline. Grief doesn't wait for permission, and healing doesn't follow logic. You are learning breath by breath to allow things to be as they are. Not because you've given up, but because you've begun to trust that your presence is more powerful than your resistance. You're not a puzzle. You're not a machine. You're not a brand, or a project, or a task. You're a field, a landscape of sensation and memory and instinct, shaped by wind and time and feeling. And in this moment, the wind has quieted. The field is resting. Nothing blooms forever. There are seasons within you. And this quiet is one of them. Let the silence hold you now. Not because it promises answers, but because it no longer demands them. There is no urgency in your chest, no panic in your breath. Even if thoughts still wander, they move more slowly, more gently, like leaves carried by a stream that no longer needs direction. Let them drift. If you feel emotion now, let it be without name. It might not be joy. It might not be sorrow. It might be something older than both. A sense of returning. A sense of having never left. These are not things to understand. They are things to feel. Carl Jung once said that we meet ourselves time and time again in 1,000 disguises on the path of life. And here, now, in this space, another disguise falls away. Not dramatically, not violently, just a quiet peeling, a small release. Something that used to feel necessary now feels unnecessary. Something that once felt like identity now feels like armor. And you don't need that armor here. You are not under threat. You're under sky. Wide. Still. Open. You're remembering what it's like to simply exist. Without commentary. Without posture. Without strategy. And this state, though subtle, is where the deepest repair begins. Not through epiphany, but through rest. Through breath. Through not being interrupted by your own thoughts for just long enough to remember that you are more than them. This part of the night is holy. You don't have to believe in anything to feel it. You only have to be still. The silence has a hum to it now. Not empty, not cold, but full, warm, like an ancient rhythm that predates all the noise and still knows how to lead you home. Let lead you. Let yourself continue to dissolve. Not disappear, but expand. You're not being erased. You are being returned to something larger. Something that has never asked you to be more than you are. That something has waited behind your achievements, behind your disappointments, behind your perfect sentences and your silent screams. It has never left. And now, in the softness of this moment, it rises not to take over, but to welcome you back. There is no resistance in this breath, no defense in this heartbeat, no obligation in this moment. You're not being watched. You're not being tested. You are being witnessed by yourself. And in that witnessing, something unlocks. You don't need to make yourself worthy of your own care. You don't need to earn your way into sleep. You don't need to finish healing before you're allowed to rest. You're already here, already in, already enough. There's nothing to hold anymore. Not even this experience. Let it go. Let it pass. Let it carry you wherever it leads. The dreams that come may not be logical. They may not be beautiful. They may not even be remembered, but they will be yours. They will be part of the slow integration that happens when you stop holding your breath long enough to receive it. And even if you don't sleep right away, even if your body still hums with subtle tension, none of that invalidates what is happening. You're still in a process. You're still within the field. This space is not made of results. It is made of rhythm, and rhythm is not rushed. There will come a time when this silence becomes familiar, when presence feels like home, not like effort, when you won't need to remember how to get here. You'll simply live closer to it. But for now, this is more than enough. This one breath, this moment without needing to fix or explain or justify. It is enough, and so are you. By now, the layers have softened. The thoughts that once clung to you so tightly have released their grip. The tension that lived in your shoulders has begun to dissolve. The roles you carried into the day no longer press against your chest. What remains is you, not the edited version, not the one crafted for safety or success, but the one that simply is. The one that breathes without instruction. The one that listens without fear. The one that feels without apology. You haven't become someone new tonight. You've returned to someone ancient. There's a rhythm to the psyche that only reveals itself when you stop reaching. It was never far. It was simply buried beneath noise, beneath speed, beneath the constant pressure to be understood. But you don't need to be understood right now. You don't need to explain your experience to anyone, not even to yourself. What you feel is what's true, and truth doesn't always arrive in full sentences. Sometimes it arrives as breath. Sometimes it arrives as stillness. Sometimes it arrives as sleep. If you've drifted in and out of awareness during this journey, that's exactly what was needed. The mind resists at first, but the deeper self never does. It waits. It doesn't rise in panic or demand. It moves like water, like time. It doesn't ask for perfection. It asks for room. And tonight, you've given it that room. You don't need to hold anything anymore. Not the story, not the outcome, not the identity you've outgrown. You can lay it all down here, at the edge of thought, at the beginning of dream. And as you lay it down, the unconscious takes it in, not to erase it, but to transform it into symbol, into insight, into energy that no longer needs to be hidden. You may not remember the dreams that follow this moment. That's not important. What matters is that they happen. What matters is that you are no longer afraid to meet yourself, even in the dark, especially in the dark, because the dark is not your enemy. It's your mirror, your womb, your origin. Jung understood this well. He wrote of the night's sea journey, not as a metaphor for fear, but as a necessity for return. To pass through the unconscious is not to lose yourself. It's to recover what was lost when you were taught to be only light. But you're not only light. You are shadow. You are dusk. You are all the shades between. And that is your strength. To be everything. To carry contradiction without collapse. To feel complexity without needing to resolve it. To soften even when you don't understand why. You are not here to be simple. You are here to be whole. And wholeness is not achieved. It's remembered. In quiet moments like this, when no one is watching, when nothing needs to be proven, when all that matters is this breath and the presence that carries it. There's a peace in you that doesn't depend on outcomes. It doesn't come from getting everything right. It comes from letting go of the idea that you ever had to. It lives not in perfection, but in honesty, in surrender, in the soft courage to say, this is where I am. This is who I am. And that is enough. You may not have answers to the questions that woke with you this morning. You may still carry wounds that don't have names. That's okay. Healing doesn't erase them. It teaches you how to carry them differently, with grace, with space, with the understanding that nothing needs to be perfect in order to be sacred. What you've done here tonight matters, even if it doesn't feel like it, even if you drifted, even if you doubted. You chose presence. You chose stillness. You chose to stay. And in a world that trains you to escape yourself at every turn, that is no small thing. Let this final moment settle over you like fog, gentle, quiet, ungraspable. Let the breath be the only thing you follow now. Let sleep come if it hasn't already. Let the edges blur until even the idea of self dissolves into dream. You are not leaving anything behind. You are returning, not to a place, but to a way of being, slower, undivided. You'll carry this with you, not in words, not in memory, but in your nervous system, in the way you speak more slowly tomorrow, in a way you don't rush your feelings, in the way you treat yourself when no one's watching. That is the work. That is the reward. Not becoming someone else, but remembering, finally, how to be with yourself. And now, you can rest. Truly, fully, without effort, without question, without needing anything more. You are already enough. You always were. And you are home now.